Hello, hello, I am here. Hold on, let me pull up all of my stuff. Sorry about the slightly late start. I was making coffee. I can hear it brewing now. I'm gonna pull everything up here. There's my camera. There we go. Yeah, I'm here. I'm a little tired, so I'm having like a interesting kind of day. Oh my god, my hair is like all messed up. I put on this hat before I got on and didn't look at myself in the mirror. But yeah, I'm having an interesting day. I didn't sleep all that well last night, so I've just been having like, I don't know, the past week or so has been super stressful. So low sleep, very tired. Also, big allergy day. But I'm here, and I'm gonna be doing some more work on the Mermay thing that I did on Monday. So it's gonna be more on that whole illustration, getting that done and put together so I can have it done. In my off time, I'm doing a bunch of stuff for Handbasket right now, so I don't have a lot of like stuff really that I can show or do anything. So I'm doing a bunch of like pages and backdrop stuff for that. So we're just gonna get into it because I'm tired and I want to get streaming. I want to get up on it. But hopefully that coffee that I started will help. And also hopefully I took an antihistamine as soon as I woke up. And like I said, I slept really poorly. So I went to bed at like 6 a.m. instead of going to bed at a normal person hour. So I just woke up at like, what time is it now? It's 5. I just woke up at like 4. So it is definitely going to be an interesting kind of day. And I need to do some groceries later, so I will be most likely not streaming for super long today. I'm probably going to be cutting it at the usual time, or cutting it a little bit earlier than the usual time. And also, sorry, I'm pulling up my my secondary stream observer here. Boop boop boop. But how is everyone else's day? I hope everyone else is doing good. I hope you're all having a good day hanging out. Put up my second stream here. There we go. So I can manage the stream. But yeah, I hope everyone else is having a great day. I hope everyone's having a cool time. I'm gonna be just doing some more art stuff and chilling out. I do have 2 interviews coming up, and I also have a portfolio review coming up, so this week is just a tired kind of week. Also, I'm not sure if I'll be streaming on Friday because of those portfolio reviews. I'm not sure what time they're going to be, and if I'm going to have time from the reviews to get my life together and then start streaming. So if I cancel Friday's stream, that's why. If I do cancel Friday's stream, I'll probably stream on Sunday to smooth that over and still get out some fan art. And the reason I've been doing fan art is because I really want to have something to take to conventions in the upcoming convention season or circuit, because I haven't really done convention fan art in a while, and I haven't done anything that's sellable in a while. So I'm trying to do the Friday, commit to the Friday thing so that I can have fan art to sell at cons. But yeah, I think I'm just going to get into it. Let me pull up my painting setup here. So last we left off with this illustration, I did an overlay of strawberries using a Clip Studio brush that I downloaded. I did some backdrop stuff. I did some hashing out of some of the rest of the illustration. I think this time I think I'm going to go in and start up on some color palette ideas, and the first bit that I want to start up with is these strawberries. I want the colors that are on these strawberries to be part of the color palette, so I'm just gonna take a really big marker here and select those, make a new layer, and select the colors that are on these so that I can have them. Because I really like the, 3 or so colors that are on these strawberries. And I started a color palette a while ago. Where is it? Is this it? Yeah. So I'm just going to be adding these colors to that and seeing what it looks like. It'd be nice if they actually moved. Because I'm noticing that some of the colors that are on those strawberries, like this color here in this color palette, is so similar to this one that it's kind of a moot point. So I'm gonna get rid of that. Let me move these together and merge them. But yeah, this color here, kind of a moot point. And then we have this green here that's similar to this like mint color. And I think I could probably make that mint color a little bit more green. Or like that cyan, I guess, is what it is. Or another thing that I was thinking is this sort of off purple color that I have here. I was thinking if I pull this to green instead and make it the darker color, it kind of seals the color palette. You see that? It kind of makes it all cohesive. But that's not quite like a baked goods color palette. And I really I want it to be kind of very baked goods oriented. Which is why I went with the purple to begin with. But if I go a little bit pinker with this color, maybe. It's still pretty purple. And I already have this like off brown. Thinking maybe, I mean, I could always go like full on pink, like sweets pink. But then the cyan looks off. This is the difficult thing about color palettes. Let's touch down this cyan. Let's make it a mintier color. Pull it to the greener side. Also make it softer. Yeah, see, that makes everything better. And then this brown here, I want it to be more of like a chocolatey brown, so I'm gonna up the saturation. And then we've got the cream. I think that's a pretty good sweets color palette. I think it looks pretty nice. The only thing about this is that I don't really have a color for the water. Blue isn't really a color that happens a lot in sweets, so I'm thinking I'm gonna go, instead of blue for the water, I'm gonna go with these two greens. So let me pull up because that one minty color, when I moved it over, became more of like a seafoam color, and I like that like seafoam green idea for the water. So I'm gonna go with something like this for that watercolor. So you end up with a color palette that's got some greens, some warm browns, some pinks, and I think it's gonna look good for this illustration. So yeah, there we go with that. This is the sketch, so it's gonna go below there, and then we have the strawberry layer. For now, I'm gonna get rid of that strawberry layer. What is this? Oh, that's the spoon. I'm gonna put it in sketch too. So I really want to start really finalizing some of like the line work for this, some of the actual drawing bits, to make it go together. So I really like sketched out in a darker color some of the more detailed elements up here, but now I'm gonna go in with the darkest brown that we have here. And I'm just gonna go in and, oh, there is my coffee. Hold on 1 second, I'm gonna go get my coffee. I'm not gonna pull up the BRB screen, I'll just turn my microphone off. That's me getting an email. Alright, so yeah, I'm just gonna turn my microphone off here and go grab my coffee. So, pull it down. Alright, I'm back with coffee. Okay. Hold on, let me put in my headphones here. I'm gonna grab my headphones from my other thing as well. Just because I want to test out sound on everything. Hold on. Whoop. Since I have the new mic set up, I've just been trying to like make sure that the sounds is working. Also, why is music not going? Weird. Hold on. Says that music is playing. Why can I not hear it? Now you can hear it a little bit, right? I mean, I can hear it slightly. Hold on. Okay, I think I can hear the music now, and I can kind of hear myself. Sorry, technical difficulties when streaming. Okay. I think here, let's make sure everything is working right. Hold on. Sound settings. weird. Sometimes Windows does this thing where it will make my microphone quieter than it usually is. I'm waiting on Windows to check my audio device. Also, sorry if the stream is kind of jumpy right now. I'm using a lot of setup here. Alright, that checked out. Okay, it looks like it's fine. I mean, there's not too many people here, so it doesn't matter, but I just wanted to make sure that it was all running smooth. Okay. Pulling my setup a little bit. Alright. I'm gonna take that out. Put this back in. Cool. So I'm gonna let the stream chill out a bit after that. Anytime I do anything in the stream, it always decides that now is the time to be glitchy, and then I can't draw for a bit. So we're gonna let the stream chill out. But after the stream chills a bit, we're going to start doing the illustration bits here. I'm going to start with the backdrop stuff. So I think I'm going to begin with like probably this like donut here in the back, and then the spoon, and then go from there and just move forward. So we're not going to start with the figure here, but I think probably starting with the donut is the best idea. So that's a really thin line. I don't want to go super thin with the lines because I have this like habit, right? And let me just show to explain what this habit is. So say I have like a sketch of an eye that looks like this, and right, it's just like here's our eye, and I have to line art that. I'm gonna make a new layer here when I'm line arting. I have this habit of picking a really small brush and going in and doing this and doing like kind of lines around the lines, which looks cool in some instances, but it takes me so much longer to do. Like almost kind of doing a contour line drawing. And I also have, like, along with this, I have a big habit of doing a bunch of like tiny small fiddly lines like this, and they take forever. It makes drawing take 500 years. And instead of doing that, I could have just taken a bigger brush, gone like this, and been like, okay, there's the line that I want. Now I can trace it, you know? But I never do that. I never take the bigger brush and make the line that I want and then trace around that line. I always go, okay, I'm gonna trace around the shape that I want and then fill it in. And I always fill it in manually as well. So I'm going to choose kind of a medium big brush, like a 20 point. Once again, there's me getting an email. If you're wondering what that is, or if you can hear that sound, I don't even know if you guys can hear it, if it picks up. That is VOD's laugh from The Legend of Zelda: The Minish Cap, which is by far probably on the list of Zelda games that I like. I think it is, I don't know, maybe third on my list of favorites. And that's gonna, I know that sounds like ridiculously high, considering, you know, Breath of the Wild exists and everything. But Minish Cap is literally one of my favorite games. And that's not just Zelda games, just like one of my favorite games, period. And I love it. So, but yeah, it's like third on my favorite Zelda games. I think it and Link's Awakening are kind of tied for me. And then maybe it's like, well, maybe they're not tied. I like thinking back to it, I think I had more fun with the Minish Cap, but I think I had more of a Zelda experience with Link's Awakening, so I would say Link's Awakening is a better Zelda game, but the Minish Cap is a more fun game, if that makes sense, because the Minish Cap having all of the like little things in it, like kinstone merging and all of that stuff, just seems like more of a fun game to me. So I have more, I don't know, I'm more entertained by the Minish Cap and the Minish Cap's story than I am by Link's Awakening. And that may just be because, like, I'm extremely too heterosexual, or extremely too homosexual for Lincoln, what is her name? Mayrin or whatever, the one who sings. I always forget her name because there's like Mayrin and Malon and everyone, but I like that friendship, I guess, in Link's Awakening meant nothing to me. So I don't really have a lot of connection with it. It's not one of my favorite like Link romance stories, I guess, because there are some relatively good romance stories with Link in some of the Zelda games, but that one, not so much. I don't know why it didn't hit me. I don't think it's meant to be a romance. I think they meant it to be sort of like friendship, and then it just kind of like got shipped by people, you know, because people like to ship characters. I don't think it's meant to be this like heavily romantic pairing, but people decided that that's what it was. But yeah, I don't really like their interactions all too much. I think they're kind of like, sadly, kind of shoddily written. Nothing against the devs of that game. I think they're different devs than the Minish Cap game devs, because I think Minish Cap was Capcom. I'm not sure if Minish Cap was Capcom or if it was another company. No, I think Minish Cap was Capcom, and I think Link's Awakening was Nintendo, if what I remember is correct. But yeah, I think Link's Awakening is... what just happening? That's not what I wanted to do. Put it back in the eraser. There we go. But I think Link's Awakening is the better game of the two, but I think Minish Cap is more fun game of the two, I guess, because I think Link's Awakening has more content, more challenges. Like, as an adult, going back and playing them, because I did play them when I turned 25, I think. I bought, because I have a story with Minish Cap, and this may also contribute to the reason why I am so, like, why I love the game so much and why I got so fixated on it. I had a Game Boy Advance when I was a Game Boy Advance SP when I was a child, that I loved dearly, and I have two older brothers, and I remember that they each also had game systems. My middle brother had, I mean, technically I have three older brothers, but the other one is like so much older than me that I didn't grow up with him, essentially, because when I was a baby child, he was like in his 20s, like when I was 5, so I never interacted with him all that much, other than like family gatherings. But anyway, my middle brother, who is 7 years older than me, he had our Nintendo 64 in his room, and the agreement was like, he can have the Nintendo 64 in his room as long as we are allowed to play it whenever, you know, we want, when it's not like sleeping hours or whatever, and as long as we all share. So he got the Nintendo 64, so he didn't get a Game Boy Advance. And he didn't really want one. He was more interested in cars and explosives anyway. Like, he became an auto worker as well as a cake decorator. And now he works in auto work kind of stuff. So he did a lot of like fun, creative stuff. I remember him doing a lot of like blowing stuff up in the backyard with firecrackers and things like that. Homemade firecrackers too, because they were technically illegal. If firecrackers, if the FBI are watching, does not refer to explosives. Anyway, but yeah, we each had a game system that we were allowed to, sort of like keep. And his was N64, and my other brother and I, the eldest brother and I, each got a Game Boy Advance SP one year for some holiday. I forget which one. And my eldest brother is not great at caring for things, if that makes sense. He's not at the time. I think he's better now as an adult. He was an adult when I was little as well. He is 14 years older than me. He also streams on Twitch, by the way. I think his Twitch handle is Duidism, and I follow him. But he wasn't great at caring for things, and he was going away on this like vacation trip with something that he had to do for like a job or school or something. He's an anthropologist, or he was. That was his like college degree. So he was going away for this like anthropology thing, and I think he was either going to Egypt or Ireland. I can't remember which one. And my mother, bless her, I love her. And this was when we lived in the States. My brother was going away he was either going back home, or he was flying somewhere, and I don't remember where. I think he was going to Egypt. I want to bet he was going to Egypt. I don't know though. He was going away, and my mother knew that he didn't have his Game Boy anymore. He lost it either at a dig site or at university. He just didn't keep track of it all that well at the time. Couldn't find it in his room, and my mother, when he was leaving, was just like, hey, your brother can't find his game. Why don't you give him yours and some of the games that came with it, and I'll buy you another one, and I'll replace your games later. And I said, okay, because I was a good little baby who, like, trusted too much. I don't know. I was a good child, and I did love my brother, and I wanted him to, enjoy himself on whatever trip he was going on. So I gave him my Game Boy. When he came back, he didn't have it. And that broke me as like a small, I think I was like 9. I was 9 or 10. As a small kid, that was like the worst thing that ever happened to me. Him coming home and him not having that Game Boy when he came through the airport doors. I was so upset. And my parents didn't buy me a new one because they thought he was just going to come back with it. And I was all stressed out because I was like, he's not going to come back with it. And they were like, no, listen, if he doesn't come back with it, we'll buy you another one. And I was like, you don't understand. He's not going to come back to it. So I had the most I told you so moment with my parents that day. But anyway, one of the games that was with that game system when I sent him off with it was the Minish Cap. And on top of not having the Game Boy Advance SP, that Minish Cap cartridge was literally my favorite game system. Like, my favorite game on any game that I had played. I was playing it 24/7. I would repeatedly play it. I would like beat it and then start the game over again. Yes, when Dan went to Ireland. I'm talking about Minish Cap, if you remember my obsession with Minish Cap. Basically, because you didn't hear the story, I will summarize here. When Dan went to Ireland, or when he went, was it when he went to the dig site in California? I think it was either California, it was some thing where he had to fly. And you told me to give him my game system because he didn't have his, he lost his somewhere. And you were like, if he loses it, we'll buy you a new one and we'll replace your games. And I was like, yeah, I'll give him my game system. That sounds fair. If he loses it, I get a new game system. Sounds fine. And like, to your credit, I did get a new game system. It wasn't like I never got another one or it never got replaced. But giving him my game system and him coming back and it not be like, he didn't have it when he came back, and I was so upset. I was distraught. And because I am a tiny baby with autism, I didn't know how to convey how distraught I was. So I was obsessed with the Minish Cap, which is a game for the Game Boy Advance SP, or Game Boy Advance, and I had an SP. And I was obsessed with that game. And my mom, bless her, did not know that my obsession was with the game and not the game system. And she didn't understand that when I was like distraught, it wasn't because I didn't have the Game Boy Advance. So I think what happened, if I'm remembering this right, he came back at night one night, and we had to go pick him up at the airport. And I remember being like, where's my game system? And I remember from that night until the next morning, I was catatonic. I was not functioning, and I didn't have school in the morning. I think it was like a Sunday, and my mother took us the next morning to the mall, just me. I think my brother slept in, and bought me a new Game Boy Advance SP, but the mall or Target or wherever we went to for this did not have the Minish Cap. So I was still distraught, but I was like a little bit better, and I think we got a Pokemon game, and I was like, I like Pokemon. But for the next 3.5 years, I did not get a replacement for the game, the Minish Cap. I remember being upset about it, and I remember telling my brother repeatedly, whenever he did anything wrong, I was always like, yeah, well, I don't have my game system. Like, it was like this immediate backlash. Whenever anything happened that made me upset that he did, I would use not having that game as like a target. We went to Toys R Us, that's what it was. We went to a toy shop, and they didn't have the Minish Cap, and like, I was a tiny baby with autism. I didn't know how to convey that like the Minish Cap was the game I was looking for. So like, we got this game, we got Pokemon, we got Game Boy Advance. It was fine. Everything was fine. And my mom was just like, everything's fine. I don't understand why you're not like happy and everything. And so for the next, I think it was like, obviously it's still ongoing because I'm still talking about it, but like, I forgave my brother eventually, but for the next, what was it? At least 6 years, I continued to berate my brother that I didn't have that Minish Cap game for like 6 entire years. Whenever anything happened, if anything happened in the house, it was like, yeah, well, where's my game? Give me back my game. And like, as an adult, I understand that, like, that's fucking bonkers. Why would you do that? But as a kid, that was the only thing I cared about. I only cared about getting that game back. And I was convinced that he still had it. Like, I was convinced that he knew where it was or whatever, that he stole it from me. And he eventually also got a new game system. He got a Game Boy Advance again. And he got, from what I remember right, the original ones that we had, the first set that we had was a Game Boy Advance SP, and he got a regular Game Boy Advance. And then when we both lost them, we each both got a Game Boy Advance SP again, because when we went to that Toys R Us, they didn't have much. And I remember my mother like turning to me and being like, I know nothing about video games. Is this the same thing? And I was like, yeah, essentially they're the same game system. They just, one folds and one doesn't. So he got a black Game Boy Advance SP and I got a red one. And the black Game Boy Advance SP I still have, and I don't remember how I got it. I also still have the red one, and I also still have the silver Game Boy Advance SP that I got from the other brother. So I ended up with all of the game systems, all of the portable game systems, somehow. And I don't remember how it happened. I just remember that I never got the Minish Cap back. Like, I think how I got the Minish Cap was one year for Christmas with my father, I remember going to a toy store and pointing it out, and I don't think I even mentioned that I used to have the game. I just remember, because like my father had this thing that if my mother ever bought it for me, that he wasn't going to buy it for me because my mother would just replace it. Divorced parents are weird. But yeah, I remember going to some grocery store, some store, probably Target, and seeing the Minish Cap there. But it was also a really hard game to get a hold of, and I don't remember why. I just remember like loving the game, and I don't remember if it was because the game like was really popular, or if it was because the game had come out way later or way earlier, and it was like, you know, not as popular, and the company didn't, you know, fully fund it to have more copies. I don't know. I just remember it was for some reason impossible to get a hold of. But yeah, I somehow ended up with all of the game systems. And the weird thing is, you said thief in the chat, but the weird thing is I don't like, from what I remember, I don't think I stole them, because if I stole them, I would have remembered stealing them, because I'm a rude little bastard, and if I stole things from my brothers, I would say something about it. So I don't think I stole them. I think I don't remember what happened, but I really think that I was going off to university, and I think at some point one of my brothers gave me theirs. I think the silver Game Boy that I have, I think that was my other brother Nick giving me that one, because he didn't play it anymore and I was going to university, and he was like, here, have this. And then I don't know how I got the black one, and I know the red one was mine, but I don't know how I got the black one. I really don't. And from what I also remember, the black Game Boy Advance doesn't work, so it may have been I was given it because it didn't work or something. Yeah, I gloated if I stole something. I would not shut up about it. I just know I have 3 Game Boy Advance SPs now. And they're like I had this briefcase that I got when I was younger too. That was this silver little box with like a handle, and I bought it because I remember begging for it because I loved Yu-Gi-Oh! and I loved Seto Kaiba, so I wanted a box that looked like Seto Kaiba's box. So I got this little like silver box, and I think the 3 Game Boys and our DSs are all in there, because we also had in the family, and these ones we never like had any trouble with, like we never stole from each other or fought over anything for some reason. I don't know why, but we each had a DS, and I was the only one that got updates to the DSs from what I remember. So like we started, each of us had a DS, each of us had the initial release of a DS, and I think one of my brothers got a blue one, I got a red one, the other brother got a black one. And then by the time the DS Lite and the DSi and the 3DS all came out, none of us had them. I had a DS Lite because I wanted the Wi-Fi connection that it had, and then I don't think anyone else got a DS Lite or any of the updates to the DS. I think all of my brothers were too old at that point to play handheld games. Not that they were too old to play handheld games, they were just too old for their parents to buy them handheld games. Because I think by the time the DS Lite came out, my eldest brother had graduated from university and was, I don't remember if he had moved out by then. And then the middle brother had already moved out at that point. So brothers definitely did grow up. Brothers did a grow up. It's really weird being the age that my oldest brother was when I was like a baby. Like a small 9-year-old child. Because now that I'm like in my mid to late 20s, like I think about things and I'm like, wow, it's fun being, you know, an elder. And like when I meet small children now, I'm like, I get it. I get why my brothers were the way that they were with me. Because like I have friends now who have kids. Whenever I interact with their kids, I'm always super awkward and like super just like, wow, this is a baby. Like, even though their kids are like, you know, 6 to 12. One of my friends has a kid who is, I think, turning 13 soon, and that's baffling to me. I'm like, Monica, how in the world did that happen? And her boy is like quintessential 13-year-old. Yeah, when I was 10, Nick was 17, Dan was 9. Or Dan was 24 when I was 9. Numbers. But yeah. It's just real weird. But yeah, Monica's eldest boy is such a quintessential 13-year-old. Like, has a TikTok, plays Minecraft, all that stuff. Plays viddy game. Every time I go and like talk to Monica, I always find it really funny to talk to her son, because he's in that 13-year-old boy stage where he like has this angsty edge to him and like doesn't want to listen to authority and all that stuff. And I'm like, oh, I remember those years. I remember being 13. But yeah, childhood, man. I want to go back and play Minish Cap now that I've like brought it up. Every time I bring up the Minish Cap, I'm always like, I want to go play it again. And it doesn't help that I'm like supremely gay for the villain in Minish Cap. I love him so much, but I want to go back and play it because it's a fun game to play. It had a lot of like elements that Zelda games don't have anymore, like kinstone merging and all that stuff, because older Zelda games had a lot more puzzle aspects to them, and that was why I liked the games. I loved puzzle games. And newer Zelda games, they're like moving away from the puzzle aspect of the game. Like, there's still some puzzles in Breath of the Wild, and there's still some puzzle elements and things, but newer Zelda games are kind of turning into this like combat game, I guess. And I'm not a fan of combat games. If I wanted to play like tactics games, I would play Final Fantasy Tactics, or I would play Fire Emblem. But it seems like Zelda games are kind of like trying to corner that market, because Nintendo is realizing that like those are really popular, and so they're introducing a bunch of elements to the games that I'm not like a huge fan of. And I'm not usually the type that's like, games should never advance, but I don't know. 3D Zelda games and like 2D Zelda games are a different beast in my opinion, and I wish they would release more 2D Zelda games, I guess. because the 3D games are really heavily going in a direction that I don't like. Not that I didn't enjoy the newest one, and that I didn't enjoy any of the 3D games. I love the 3D games. They just don't have puzzles as much, and they're not as fun, and the stories are boring. I don't know why I was so fascinated with the story of Minish Cap so much. There was something about maybe just like the obsession with fairies was something that helped, because the Minish Cap is the whole story of the Minish Cap is very fae oriented. I mean, like the whole premise is that there is in Hyrule there's this secretive tiny race of people called the Picori that were instrumental in helping the hero of the past like defeat the evil Ganondorf, which is the premise of every Zelda game. There's the evil Ganondorf, and some race, something helps the hero defeat him. But in Minish Cap specifically, it was the Picori helped him by giving him like a special blade, and that helped him defeat the evil. And so you play as Link, and one of the titular like abilities that Link has is he gets this hat named Eslo, who used to be a Picori, who can turn Link into like a tiny creature, like shrink him down. So like the whole adventure part of the game and a lot of the little like things that you unlock throughout the game are about figuring out how to get somewhere using the ability to become smaller. And it was really interesting to me, and I don't, like, growing up now, I don't really know why, but I do think that like the sort of like Fey realm element of some of it was part of it. Like that was definitely part of why I thought the game was so interesting as a child. And I remember also being really super interested in like the lore of the Picori. I don't remember much of it now, but I do remember just really liking their like whole backstory. And then there was like this other race of people called like the Sky People or something, and I loved them too, because I mean, Sky People, it's so cool. But yeah, I loved Minish Cap's whole story premise. I want more of that in Zelda games, because now a lot of the games are like, they're going kind of the Final Fantasy route, where there are different races of people, and each different race has a culture, and which like, I like that sort of writing style, but they're going the route where it's like all of the races of people are regular people, just with like different aspects and different like personality things because of their race. So like you have like the classic Zelda races, like the Gorons and Zora and oh god, what are the Rito, the bird people, but instead of it being like the Picori, where it's like you have a special ability based on those people, right? They're focusing on the characters that these people are. So for like the Rito, you have like the Rito champion, and they're focusing on him specifically, and they're not showing you how this race of people lives or what special abilities that race of people has as much anymore. And it's more about who's in your party, kind of Final Fantasy style, like who are your like your group of battle people that you have, and what are their special abilities, and you only really care about them as a way to get through a battle or get through a fight. Whereas I don't know, maybe it's just the like being a child and having an older brother who is an anthropologist. I really liked the more focus on like the culture of a people. So like I loved learning about the Picori and their whole lore and their backstory and everything, because I liked learning about how they would live. Like, how would these tiny people that have to hide themselves away from like the larger Hylian, you know, people, how would they live? How would they secret themselves away? How would they like get around the world? And there are elements of the game where you essentially have to learn to live as a Picori, where you like have to hide from people's pet cat, you know, or things like that happen. And it's really, really neat. It's one of my favorite elements of the game, because other than just the puzzles, I like how they're set up, how the storyline is weaved into the puzzles. Like, there's this one puzzle that I remember that I loved a lot, which is there's a house in the south side of Hyrule Town where you have to go and you have to get in by going through a back little like grate or something in the back of the house. And when you go in as a Picori, there's a cat that will chase you. So you actually have to go to 2 houses down and go to, there's like a shoemaker's shop, and you get to go through this whole shoe shop as a Picori, and you get to kind of walk through the back end of this shoe shop, and then you climb to the top of the shoe shop, and there's a board that goes from the shoe shop to the shop with the cat in it, and you have to use that way to get through that house, and then use that to get back to another portion of the landscape. And it just like, the stacking and platforming of that is really cool in my opinion. The design of how that all fits together, and how you have to get through it as someone who is masquerading as a Picori is neat to me, and I miss that about some of the older Zelda games, about like how they used to have these puzzle elements that like had to do with the story of the game, and are less about like defeat this evil thing. Because like the Breath of the Wild, as much as I love it, I feel like it's a really good step up for the games. It became kind of boring to me, especially with like the blights and everything, like the different blight Ganons and stuff, because it's just sort of like, go to the dungeon, defeat the thing, go to the dungeon, defeat the thing, go to the dungeon, defeat the thing. And there are puzzles, but all the puzzles are this, figure out this puzzle so you can go defeat this thing. Whereas in Minish Cap, the puzzles are more integrated into the story. It's like, figure out this puzzle and you learn more about the town that you're in. And I love that. I love that so much. Like, I figured out how to get to that other shop with the cat in it, and you learn about the person who lives in that shop because you can get in before. So you learn how that person lives, and you get, obviously you get something for doing that. Like, you get some in-game item, but you also get to learn some lore about the whole place. And I like that game writing much more, and games, modern games, are going away from it. They're going more for the RPG writing style. Not that I dislike RPGs. Final Fantasy is a great game, but it's not Zelda, in my opinion. They're 2 different games, and I want them to remain to be 2 different games. So, but yeah, that's just like, I don't know, some nostalgia I have about Minish Cap and Zelda games in general, and Link's Awakening, and all the games that I grew up with as a tiny baby child. And like, I played so many games when I was younger. I don't have time to play games now. I barely have time to function now. But I don't have time to play very many games. I still play Animal Crossing. That's the one game I make time for. But I really want to play more like good story games. Like, one game that I played a while ago was Hollow Knight, and I loved that game a lot because it you know, has the same sort of elements as Minish Cap. Like, all the puzzles relate to finding out more about the world. It also has sort of this punishing atmosphere, a bit like Dark Souls, and I love the Dark Souls games. And Dark Souls also has the same thing. All the puzzles relate to finding more about the world. So I really want to play more games like that. And I'm a big fan of like spooky games, and I want more spooky kind of games. And I'm getting kind of tired of game studios like Nintendo being like, this is the darkest Zelda game that we've made in years. That's been like a recent claim about Breath of the Wild, and like, not to hate, but Breath of the Wild is not a dark Zelda game. Like, Majora's Mask was a dark Zelda game. Twilight Princess was a dark Zelda game. But Breath of the Wild is not a dark Zelda game. And people are like, oh, well, it's because you're in a Hyrule that's destroyed. And I don't know how to explain to someone that just because something is destroyed or dilapidated, it doesn't make it a dark storyline. It doesn't make it like gothic or creepy or anything like that. I don't know if other people found that game was creepy. Hyrule is not a creepy place in the newest Zelda game, and it's not a dark game. And the idea of the impending doom of Ganon doesn't make it a dark game. That's been a staple in all Zelda games except for Minish Cap. What I think makes a dark game is the sort of elements that relate to the emotions of the people in the game world. So things like this like bleakness that the world has and things like that. That's what makes a game dark. And Hyrule is not like, Breath of the Wild can't be a dark game because there is still this there's still this hope out there. There's still Zelda one day will come and defeat Ganon. There's still Link is alive. It's got this brightness to it that you can't erase because of the way the story is written. And it bothers me that Nintendo thinks that this is darkness. It's like, no, you play a horror game. Please Nintendo game devs, play a horror game. And I don't even like want Zelda games to become horror games. I think that they do much better with a slightly brighter atmosphere, and I really liked Minish Cap, and it's a very bright game. I just think that if they want to make Zelda games darker, they should lean into it a bit more like they did with Majora's Mask. Majora's Mask is an unparalleled dark game. That game, I don't think that the Zelda team that we have now could write a game that is that dark again. I don't think that they have the chops to do that. I think that they would chicken away from it because they're worried about their bottom line. They're worried about making enough for those shareholders, and so I don't think they're ever gonna make another dark Zelda game like that. And everyone keeps saying that the sequel to Breath of the Wild 2 or whatever it's gonna be called is going to be darker, and I don't think that they can make a sequel in the wilds, that the world that they've made, that is dark. And maybe I'll be proven wrong, but I don't think that they can because of the world that they've made. Because erasing all of the people from the world, right? Like, they erased a bunch of people from a world and basically just said like, hey, you know, all these people that are in this world got obliterated by Ganon, and that's super dark. And that's not what darkness is. When you write a dark story, as someone who writes horror often, having the bad things happen off screen doesn't make it scary, right? you want to not have the bad things happen on screen. You want to have the bad things happen slightly blurry and in the background. And I know that sounds, weird, and I know that it doesn't probably make a lot of sense, but to explain that, the way that I write a lot of my horror stories and the way that I write a lot of my spooky comic stuff and things like that is, you want to have the scary thing, you want it to happen in plain sight, but you don't want it to happen so plain that it just becomes gore murder porn, right? So you want to have it happen quietly in the background, slightly blurry, so that people who look closely notice it. So in order to make a dark game out of something like Breath of the Wild, where Ganon has obliterated an entire city-state, essentially, and has, basically left the world in ruin and all that stuff, instead of making it so that all the people who were in Castle Town, all the people who were in the castle are gone now. They've been killed, they've been obliterated, they don't exist anymore. To make it dark, you make them there, but only visible if something happens. So take Twilight Princess, for example. That was an incredibly dark game, and you think about Castletown from that game, and the only way to see the ghosts of the people in Castletown is to use your dog senses in Twilight Princess, and use your sniff sense, and you can see these ghosts of people, and not only are they there, they don't just hover. You can go up to them and speak to them, and they will shudder and be fearful, and they'll be fearful of not only just you, but a lot of the dialogue that they have is they will be fearful of all sorts of things. They will be fearful of the world that they're in. They'll say things like, what happened to us? They'll say things like, where's my mother? All kinds of things like that, and that's terrifying. That's how you make a game dark. That's how you make dark writing for a video game. And it's a Zelda game, so you can't tell me that they can't do that again. And I don't even want a repeat of that. I just want something that's more dark than, oh no, the world is in shambles. Because that's not dark. That's just depressing. There's a difference. And I don't know, playing Breath of the Wild, I don't feel the darkness, because I keep having people come up to me and tell me that I am the hero and they're gonna kill me. It kind of deletes any dark vibe that you were gonna have with this game when you have people who believe so people in the world who believe so heavily that you're the hero and you're a threat to Ganon. You're a threat to the world ending. If people like that are afraid that I'm going to end their reign of terror, then the game can't be that dark. There's slivers of hope out there. There's people in the world that believe that it's going to get better, so it can't be that dark. And yeah, there are some dark elements. There are some storylines in Breath of the Wild that I think are extremely dark. There's the storyline where you're playing hide and seek with a couple of kids and their mother died, and one of the children, when you're playing hide and seek with her, you go up to this hill and she's you talk to her oh, are you hiding here? And she says that her mother is hiding, and you see a grave and she's crying at this grave saying that her mother is still playing hide and seek. That's dark, and she's the youngest of 2 girls. And it's that's dark, but that's just an element. That's a storyline. That's not a storyline of the game. That's just one thing that happens in the game. That doesn't make the game itself dark. The initial storyline of Breath of the Wild is extremely bright and happy and optimistic, and you don't have to shy away from that. I wish Nintendo would stop shying away from that. You can make a happy game, and you don't have to be ashamed of it. But for some reason, they're just obsessed with saying that Breath of the Wild is a dark game, and I don't understand why they want this. Like, stop trying to bill it as a horror game. It's not scary. It'll never be scary, and that's fine. It's a baby game for baby children, and that's fine. I still love it. But it bothers me so much that every iteration of anything related to Breath of the Wild that comes out, they're like, the darkest story yet, you know? And it's like, no. The world ending is not a dark storyline. Hot take, but it's not a dark storyline to write end of the world fan fiction, okay? Like, it's like every edgy boy who's ever written anything on any fanfiction site, on fanfiction.net, like every edgy place that you could go for fanfiction, there is a story where it's like, what if this fantasy world that you like, but everything was bad? And it's like, that's not a dark story. That's just fanfiction. That's, what if Hyrule, but everyone died? It's like, can you not? Like, real horror is having your mind completely rent asunder by the thought of something. Like, that's scary. That's dark. And I hate to say it, but, you know, like, I feel like with things like Legend of Zelda, I think Nintendo should just kind of quit while they're ahead. If they want to make a dark game, make a different game, because Legend of Zelda already has this connotation of being this, like, incredibly bright, optimistic game. Like, and even to be fair, I think the darkest game in the Zelda franchise is not Twilight Princess, is not, like, any of the darker games that people always, is not even Majora's Mask, even though that one's a close runner-up. I think the darkest game in Zelda is Wind Waker, and the art style of that game is incredibly cutesy, and people are always like, well, it can't be dark because of the cutesy art style, and I know people hated the art style when it came out, but Wind Waker is an incredibly dark game, like super incredibly dark. The whole premise of Wind Waker is that the entirety of Hyrule has been flooded. Not only has it been flooded, but the refugees of the Hyrule that got flooded are stranded on islands, and they're living out their lives in these menial little existences on these islands, separated from each other. Not only that, but the different races of Hyrule, some of them have completely gone extinct. And in all of that, in the midst of all of that, in the midst of Ganon 1, Hyrule is flooded, everything is terrible. You wake up as Link on a tiny island by yourself. And not only do you wake up on this tiny island by yourself with a family and with, like, no idea of who you are and what you're meant to do and who you're meant to be. You are just a normal little kid, and then your sister gets kidnapped by Ganon. A Ganon that, mind you, everyone thought died when Hyrule flooded. So, you have to go save your sister, right? And I think the darkest moment in any Zelda game that I've ever encountered was when you go into the house of your grandmother. You are running away to go save your sister with a group of pirates, and the pirates tell you that you need a shield, and you remember that, hey, my family has a shield hanging on the wall, my grandma has it in grandma's house. You go over to your grandmother's house to say goodbye and to take the shield, and you go in, and it's not on the wall. You walk down, you leave that area, you walk down, and your grandmother is standing in front of the door holding it. And she says, "You're leaving, aren't you?" That is incredibly dark and sad. And then, on top of that, they pile on top of it, they say they have you, when you go back to visit your grandmother, if you go back, she is catatonic. She can't answer you she doesn't speak to you unless you do a side quest where you bring her a special potion thing. But without that special thing, she doesn't react to Link at all. You go back to talk to your grandmother, and all she can say is Errol, which is your sister's name. And she says, Errol, don't go. Errol, don't leave. Oh no, Errol. Repeatedly, over and over when you go back to visit her. Hey, I'm sad? Like, what in the hell? What in the hell, Nintendo? And they tell me that Breath of the Wild is the darkest game. No, screw you. Screw you. Creating a protagonist that has no ties to anyone in the world, who is out of time and out of place, who doesn't have friends, who doesn't remember the friends he has, does not make a dark game. The only way to make something horrific is to give your character something they love and then kill it. That is how you make a horrific game. That's how you make a horrific story. That's how you write the worst of the worst. You make things happy, you make things good, and then you murder it. And that's not just like, oh, gore, kill the protagonist's love interest. No. The moment that made your interactions with your grandmother dark in that game isn't because Grandma died. Grandma never dies. She doesn't pass away. She doesn't die horrifically trying to save Link or anything like that. The thing that makes that you kill when you're writing that grandmother, right, isn't her life. It's her memory of her grandchildren. It's everything that ties her to Link. You give Link something that he loves. You love Grandma, right? And you kill it. And you know people in the world, right, who have grandparents that they adore. You know people in the world outside, like in the real world, you know, you have friends who, like, oh, if anything happened to my grandma, I'd just be distraught. Oh, if one of my grandparents had Alzheimer's, I couldn't live with myself. Like, and that's what you use. You use that instead of just being like, instead of making a dystopian reality that no one in any place that we've ever been in has lived inside. Instead of making this fantasy dystopian reality and being like, oh, this is dark, like, you can just use stuff that actually exists in our reality and make that the dark elements. But I don't know, like, I know I'm harping a lot on this, but I have some real issues with the way that people react to games like that. The way that people are like, oh, this is super dark, oh, this is super scary, when it's like, I don't know if it's just that these people don't don't play horror games, or like haven't played the Wind Waker or whatever. Like, there's also elements in the Wind Waker, other than Grandma being the way that she is, that are also dark. Like, you later in the story go visit the this temple, or not temple, but this it's essentially a dungeon, but this mansion, right? And the mansion has a sort of militaristic theme, and you don't know who owns it, because the person that you essentially like buy this deed to it, right? And you don't know who owns it, and it's on this like island, and there's this like, you never find out who really owns it, but there's this butler that's trapped in a painting, and you never really learn any bit about like why that is there, why that butler is trapped there, or anything. And then in the when you do the puzzle of that area, there's just an endless dungeon, and it's one of, like, Zelda has like the habit of putting like endless dungeons in places, because like people like dungeon crawling, but that's where it's located, and it's like confusing. On top of that, all of the sages are dead. Like, and like, Breath of the Wild likes to say that it's dark because the champions died, and they died horribly inside these like giant mecha machines, and all of that happened, right? Like, I get it. However, if you want for me to care about these champions and the fact that they died horribly in these things, it's almost better for you to characterize them, instead of characterizing them as these like epic beings, these epic champions that it could do no wrong, you can characterize them as people, and it works better. Like, think about the champions, right? Think about the one that people think is best girl. Everyone says Mipha, even though I don't agree. But so many people say Mipha. And the reason is, it's not because she is written better than all of the others, or she has a better storyline than the other ones, or anything like that. Part of it is because people are thirsty, and everyone likes the self-insert character being Link, and everyone likes to think, oh, pretty fish girl will love me. That's part of it. But Mipha's also incredibly popular with people who are not cishet, and people who, you know, are not interested in Link getting with Mipha. But the reason why she's so popular is because she is fallible. She has a crush on the champion when she shouldn't. And that fallible element of her gives her a bit of character. And the other champions, they have elements of that, but it's hard to connect with any of them because you don't really understand much about what they go through in a day-to-day life. And you can kind of go one of two ways with this. If you give us day-to-day life of your characters that you want us to empathize with so that you can eventually kill them and make them martyr them, essentially, you can either give us their everyday life and make it detailed enough that you see all of their fallible elements, or you give us none of that and give us one characteristic of them that makes them unique or interesting or something to tie onto, some mystery to hold on to, and then give a character that has some connection to them. So the way that Wind Waker does this, and the reason why I love the way that Wind Waker does this, is they give you the sages, and the only moments that you ever see these sages is you see the gosh, what is the, I'm forgetting you see the wind and the earth sages, right? And you spend the entirety of this game luring the sages around, the ones that you have to take care of. You spend the entirety of the game luring those sages around the dungeon crawling with them, doing a bunch of stuff like that. And then when you finally meet the other sages, you never speak to them. They come only for a little musical side gig, and then they have to leave. But because you have this personal connection to the sages that you've been carrying around the whole time, you have a bit of connection to these older sages. You kind of think like, oh, it's so sad that they're gone, because the ones that I have such a personality and have such a connection to the world and me. It's such a sad moment. And the moment where you interact with both of these sages is a little musical number, and they both play their music with the current ones. And that moment is endlessly more sad than any moment that you have with the other other like champions in Breath of the Wild, at least in my opinion. It's endlessly more distressing, in my opinion, to interact with these sages for all this time, like interact with Makar and Meldy, or whatever her name is, for so long, and then to see kind of the past and what could have been, like if you woke up earlier, if you were a Link that existed in the moments before Hyrule flooded, and you see one of the sages is a little boy who is a Kokiri, who looks like similar to Link, like, and it's incredibly sad because I'm not thinking about this infallible champion who like should, like, the only thing that I think about in Legend in Breath of the Wild is these champions should have been able to do this. Because of the way that they're characterized in the story, they're martyred. So the whole story kind of focuses on how powerful and how astonishingly great they are. And it doesn't work for me because all I can think is, well, if they're all powerful, why couldn't they stop this from happening? And everyone thinks like, well, that's what makes it dark, because they're all powerful and they couldn't stop it. And it's like, that's not how you write that kind of story. Because if they're all powerful and they couldn't stop it, either you're lying to me about them being all powerful, or this thing is so powerful that no matter how much power you would have, there's no way to stop it. And it can't be the latter, because you know it's a Zelda game and eventually you're gonna stop it. So it's got to be the former, that you're lying about how powerful these people are, right? I don't know. I don't agree with a lot of the writing choices of Breath of the Wild, even though I love the game. I really do. I know I'm harping on it. I really, really love the game. I played it so much when I first got it, and it is a good game. I do enjoy it, but I think a lot of the writing tropes that they're trying to lean into are tropes that they're not versed in writing, and I kind of wish they would go back to like the Wind Waker writing style, or the Minish Cap writing style, and kind of stop with this like making a party of people. Because like my favorite characters from Breath of the Wild aren't even the champions. I don't know enough about them because they died. I don't really care about the champions, and I know that sounds harsh, but like I can't be bothered to care about them. My favorite characters from the game are, and I like, even with Hyrule Warriors, I can't be bothered to care about them. My favorite character from Hyrule Warriors is Empa. So like my favorite characters from the game are characters that I got to know while I was playing the game. I love Sidon because, not because I'm hella gay, but also because like I got to see Sidon's personality. I didn't get told this story about how great he was before I ever got to meet him. And I think that's where I feel like Breath of the Wild gets kneecapped a lot for me. And I know other people love it. People love Final Fantasy. People love, it's more like Fire Emblem now. People love Fire Emblem. People love the stories of, this is a great war leader. This is all that stuff. And I also love Fire Emblem. I just feel like Legend of Zelda isn't Fire Emblem, and I don't want it to be. But like, I want more time to spend with these characters where they get to be who they are, and less time focused on them being the champion, you know? And they tried to give us that, and it backfired, at least in my opinion. Like, I played Hyrule Warriors and I was like, okay, this gave me even less context of what went on before the calamity, because what I wanted to see was less like, and Hyrule Warriors is a battle game, so obviously there's like battle stuff, but I didn't want another little like robot creature to care about. I didn't need another character to try to care about. I already don't care about the characters that we had. I wanted more time with the characters that we did have, more time with people that I'm supposed to love, and more time with Link with these people. They want their cake and eat it too. They want Link to have absolutely no personality so you can like project onto him, but then they also want him to have enough personality that when he's with these other characters that he bounces off of them naturally. And it's like, no, you can't have both. Wind Waker Link had a personality. Wind Waker Link had a lot of personality, to like, you know, say it bluntly. Wind Waker Link, when he reacted to the world, like, it was in small facial expressions, but it was enough to convey who he was as a person. He's a shit-faced little kid. Like, that's all you need to know about him. He is chaos incarnate. Like, when things happen, his reaction to them is, oh shit, now I have to be the brave one. Like, that's all, like, that you get that from his facial expressions. But this Link, somehow they have enough digital capability to give him a fully rendered face, but no facial expressions. Like, because they want people to be able to project themselves onto this Link. They're like, become the hero. And it's like, I don't know who I'm becoming. I want Link to be a person. I want Link to have a stake in the story, to have a personality. Like, all the Links before this did. All the Links before this had some semblance of a self. And I know that, like, in Breath of the Wild proper, he lost all of his memories. And it would have been a really good meditation. Like, the game would have been a really good meditation on how that changes a person if they didn't fucking shy away from it. But they did. Like, if they didn't shy away from what losing all of your memories does to a person, I would have liked to see a Link that didn't want to be the champion. He lost all of his memories. Being the champion was difficult. I would have liked a Link that reacted to King Rome giving him that responsibility with, I'm not doing that. And if you look at people playing the game, that is a fun thing that most of the people in the world, like, their first interaction with Breath of the Wild, they're like, yeah, no, fuck that. I'm not gonna go do these storylines that you want me to do. I'm not gonna interact with this game. And I would have liked it if the Link that we got had that same reaction, had like echoed that in some way. It could have been the smallest little facial expression, the smallest little reaction of, like, when the king comes to you and is like, you must save Hyrule, and you're like, why? What is there to save? Like a facial reaction of, no. Like, I would have liked that much better. And people are saying, well, you can't have a Link that has a lot of facial expressions because, or a lot of, you know, interactions or whatever, because people have to be able to project themselves onto Link and all that stuff. One, I never want Link to be able to talk, and if they ever announce that Link has voice acting, I'm going to stop playing the games, because I like that tradition and I want it to stay. And I know I'm a stick in the mud and I'm an old gamer, but I just like that. But I want Link to, I didn't need a reason for why he doesn't talk, if that makes sense. Like, they thought, we're gonna characterize this person by giving a reason to something that didn't need a reason. Like, he didn't need a reason for not speaking. I didn't care that he didn't talk. In fact, I liked it as a quirk of his character that he didn't speak. Like, I thought that was just a quirk that Link has. Just a funny thing that Link always does. Like, that's how it's played off in things like Skyward Sword and things like Twilight Princess. It's a funny quirk that he doesn't talk. There are moments in Twilight Princess where Midna talks to you and she says, and I quote, like, oh, you're not gonna answer me? Fine. And I like that. I like that being like a funny thing that happens. I didn't need a bunch of these characters treating Link like he is this fragile baby who has a bunch of PTSD, not speaking. Like that wasn't a necessary. Oh, Hoshi came over here. That wasn't a necessary moment for me, but for some reason they thought it was. I don't know. I have some worries about the Zelda franchise. I could talk about the Zelda franchise for 5 hours because I love those games so much. Like, my first interaction with them was my my brother's game system that I stole, his Nintendo 64. But I could talk about them forever. Alright, we're coming up on 6:30. Let's look at our time frame here. We're at an hour and 30 minutes, I think, and we're dropping some frames, so hang on. I'm gonna check on everything here. Oh, Hoshi made some noise. I'm gonna check on our setup here, make sure everything's going good, and then I'm going to be grabbing some coffee again, refilling my cup with some warmer coffee. Oop. Gosh. But hopefully this is working. Hopefully everyone can hear me. I'm checking on my mic right now. Yeah, looks like it's all going good. So yeah, I'm gonna take a short little break. I've gotten a lot of the like main sketching done for this. So I'm gonna take a break and get some more warm coffee and set some things up for the next bit here. But I really want to get this piece done since I'm not really doing like too much Mermay this year, but I want to have like one Mermay piece. And I really like the prompt of this, and I like the idea of like sweets plus mermaid. I think it's cute. And I know a lot of people are going to be doing like cutesy sweet thing, and I wanted to do a more gothic piece. So I'm going to be finishing this up when I come back with my coffee and we get things all put together. I'm probably going to need to use a curve tool for these moments here. I'm realizing now that like the way that I drew it is a little wonky. But yeah, I will go get some coffee. I will come back and we will finish this up. Finish up at least the thing I want to finish today is at least the sketching drawing. If I can finish that today, I will be happy. I think I'm gonna focus on the face when I come back, so let me zoom in on that. But I want to at least get like this major sketch part more done, because if I can get this more done, I can start doing color when I start working on this, so I can start that up. But yeah, I'm gonna be finishing this up when we come back. I'm also going to start, I'm not going to be doing Mermay like all of Mermay this year, but I do want to do a couple of the prompts. This is one of them. So I think I'm going to start kind of conceptualizing out some ideas for the other prompts, kind of talking through them a little bit when I come back. So that's something to look forward to. But I'm going to get some coffee, and I will be back in 10-15 minutes. See you then. Let me put up my BRB screen. Alright, I have returned. So it's time to get back into doing this. I really want to get the face done at this point. I think that's going to be the hardest thing. I might have to switch to a slightly smaller brush to do this. But I'm just going to do as much of it with the large brush that I have as I can. I did get another cup of coffee, so we've got caffeinated beverage here. I'm probably, where are we at on time? Okay, we're almost at the 2-hour mark for the stream, so probably going to be streaming for another hour or so, and then I need to stop and do some commissions and do some other work, so going to be doing that as well. But yeah, I will be here for the next hour, trying to finish up everything that I started on with this, trying to finish up this kind of, I don't know whether to call this the line art. Oh, sorry, hit my mic. I don't know whether to call this the line art or to think of it as the like sketch layer or what. I think I'm gonna go with line art for now. But yeah, I'm gonna finish up this line slash sketch. I don't think I'm really gonna line art this, like I'm really gonna add line to this thing. I think I'm just gonna go straight from this more like refined sketch into doing the paint, because I think doing line art for something like this wouldn't really work with the style that I want to go for. So I'm just gonna go directly into doing paint with this. But yeah, I'm just gonna keep finishing up this thing, getting all the elements done for what I drew in here, and hopefully I can get it. Hopefully I can get at least this part done for today. That's my goal. Then I have to actually start doing real work. Real commission times, real commission hours. I do have one commission that I'm behind on that I really need to get to. It's a friend's commission, so I really need to haul ass on it. And then I have another one that's due on the 10th that I need to haul ass on as well. The one on the 10th I could probably wait to start working on, but the one that needs some help is currently, it's not really due, but I need to do the like I've already done the preliminary thumbnails, but I need to like put them all on one page and sort them and everything, so that I can show them to the person, because it's been a couple weeks I think, and I feel bad. I feel super bad because I took this commission thinking that I would have more time to, you know, get things done, and I know, like, yeah, I could technically just tell the person, hey, time suck, you know, I'll get it to you soon, but I always feel bad doing that, so, you know, I want to get this done. It also feels weird, and I know, like, I shouldn't think this way, but it always feels weird to be working on my own personal stuff that I want to get done when I have commissions lined up, and I know, like, the people that this commission is for, like, they don't care. I know they're not gonna, you know, be shitlords about it, and they're not gonna be like, don't ever draw anything except for the thing I paid you to draw, you know, but I still have, like, these residual feelings after being treated terribly by other commission people that I shouldn't be working on anything but their commission, and I always hate when that, like, rears its head, because it's like, oh, I'm behind on sending them the thumbnails for their commission, but, like, at the same time, I have to be my own person. I have to actually draw stuff that makes me happy. So, you know, I don't know. I get into, like, these weird moods sometimes, and it gets, like, a little difficult to get out of them, but, you know, maybe once I get the thumbnails all finished and I send those out and I get my feedback on them, I'll have a little bit of a different sort of vibe about it around that commission. Plus, it's a really fun thing to draw, so, like, I'm really excited to do it. It's just that, like, that initial, you know, sending those thumbnails out is really anxiety inducing. And I just finished a commission for a friend recently that was really good, that I liked doing a lot. It had to do with vampires, because of course it did, because I'm me. So I liked that a lot. I also, like, I'm really upset because I want to do some fan art for Castlevania before it comes out later this month. But I haven't had a lot of time to, like, devote to doing stuff like that, so I've just been kind of, like, sadly sitting on the sidelines. But maybe I'll do, like, a real quick Castlevania drawing. I did do one that's up on my Twitter that is Alucard with top surgery scars that I thought was really fun, but that was just like a little, like, doodle sketch. I had to get it out of my brain. A lot of the time when stuff like that, like, it's almost like I get brain worms and I, like, can only think about that idea, and that's what happened with that. I was just like, Alucard, but top surgery scars, but bat-shaped top surgery scars, like, and that was all I could think about for a good few minutes. And then I was like, I have to draw it. I have to draw. But yeah. Oh, also, it's Wednesday, which means it is Wednesday, my dudes. Now, it's Wednesday, which means that I get to listen to Dimension 20 today as I'm doing commissions. That's always fun. I love Dimension 20. So I'm excited. It updates every Wednesday, so I can go and watch it when it updates. It's, I think, supposed to update at 7, so now? But I'm not going to have time to watch it until I get done with streaming, so. But yeah, I get to watch that for the commission stuff that I'm working on. I'm excited for that. The only downside to watching or listening to Dimension 20 when all of that is happening is that I want to draw fan art so bad while I'm watching Dimension 20, and I kind of, like, I do commissions, but then, like, all my brain can think about is doing fan art, so that's the only downside. But it does work out pretty okay. I do get to watch a really cool show while I'm doing commissions, and I've found that, like, oddly, a lot of watching shows or listening to things messes me up when I'm doing, like, drawing, because I kind of, like, can't focus on the drawing plus the thing. Like, my brain won't focus enough to be able to draw. I just end up listening to the podcast or whatever I'm listening to. But Dimension 20 rarely is one that I can listen to while I'm doing stuff. Same with Adventure Zone. That's another one that I can, like, rarely listen to. I can't with Critical Role. I can't listen to Crit Role while I'm doing other stuff, strangely. And I think that's a testament to, like, the storytelling in Crit Role, because Crit Role has this very high fantasy storytelling style that is very serious, and, like, not that they don't have comedy elements, but it's very, like, intensive, I guess is a good way to describe that. And so it takes a lot of, like, brain power for me to listen to Crit Role, so I can't always listen to Crit Role while I'm doing anything else, but I can with D20, because it has a lot of those, like, fun little quippy elements. It's well written, it's well researched, so I like that a lot. But yeah, I can't wait for listening to the next beat in the murder mystery episodes. I love murder mysteries. That's part of the reason I'm super excited for this season, because murder mysteries are one of my favorite genres. Obviously, I mean, I love puzzle games, and I love gore, and I love horror, so, like, you combine all of that, you get a murder mystery. Alright, let's something like that. That's pretty good. And I really want, it's gonna be really weird and gross, but I want, like, a string of sticky here. And I drew these teeth in, but I'm just gonna more refine the shapes of them, and then do the same thing with here. Alright, there we go. That's pretty good. I was all worried about the face taking forever, and it didn't. There are some elements here that I'm not, like, super fan of, but it's alright. I can always go in and lay in more detail a little bit later. Oh my god, so many things are lighting up on my phone. Hold on. Okay. Putting my stream viewer back. Cup of coffee here. Good coffee. Alright, where are we at on stream here? Checking out everything. We just hit the 2-hour mark. Nice. Very nice. Excited about that. So let's see. Next little bit of this. I'm noticing here that the nail on this hand, on this finger right here, is way too curved, so I'm gonna uncurve it just slightly. And it's also way too long compared to the others, so I'm also gonna fix that. Get an even smaller brush in here. The good thing about this brush that I use for doing stuff like sketching and refining and stuff is since it's an oval brush, I can do this, like, make it smaller and add even more definition. Like if I go in with a 10 point over the lines that I just made, since it makes a darker line, it defines what I've just made a little bit more and kind of like pulls it all in together, focuses that line a little bit, which I like. I'm also gonna add in eyelashes. Normally underwater creatures wouldn't have eyelashes, but I feel like if I ever don't draw eyelashes on my characters, send me to the hospital. I love drawing eyelashes. They're like one of the favorite things for me to draw. It's actually something that I used to hyper focus on a lot about people when I was talking to people as someone with horrible autism time. I would focus heavily on their eyelashes because I just liked how they looked, and I still do to some extent, but I used to super duper focus on people's eyelashes. And when I became an illustrator, I had a professor who told me that men don't have eyelashes, and that just like infuriated me to a level that I will never like grow out of. And like obviously I don't think this man was stupid enough to think that men don't have eyelashes. I just think that like stylistically he was trying to tell me that like people don't draw men with eyelashes, but he said it as men don't have eyelashes. And from that point on, I had this vindictive streak of just like every man that I drew from that moment on had voluptuous huge eyelashes, and I never grew out of it. I still do that to this day. Obviously this character, I don't think this person identifies as a man, but has a mask oriented chest cavity area. And I'm drawing them with ridiculous eyelashes, so sorry about that. But yeah, eyelashes are big mood. Love drawing eyelashes. They're honestly one of the funnest things to put on characters. A lot of artists have their own like little things that they like to draw, you know, and for me it's eyelashes. I know a couple of other artists who their thing that they like to draw. I added this like sticky bit here and realized that I have to do webbing on the hands, and that doesn't track, so I'm gonna have to get rid of it. Bummer. But yeah, a lot of artists have their own like things that they enjoy, that like they draw specifically. For me it was eyelashes and hands, and eyes to some extent, but mostly eyelashes and hands. And then most recently, the thing that I've like super focused on has been noses, and I don't know where that came from. It came like out of nowhere, but I just got like big hyper focus mood into drawing noses. So I've been drawing noses on literally everything, all my papers. Every time I get out something to draw, every sketchbook I do, I'm just like, I'm gonna draw a bunch of noses. So I love when you can tell that artists have gone through those phases too. I don't know if it's visible in what I'm doing now. Maybe a little bit with the way that this nose is drawn. But like, I love when you can tell that an artist is going through one of those phases of like, I'm gonna draw this thing specifically and I'm gonna get really good at it. But it's one of my favorite things to like catch up on with other artists, is like to catch up on what their new fixation is. Especially having like friends in art fields and just being like, so what's your thing? Like, what is your new fixation? Because artists go through them like quickly enough that, you know, if I haven't seen one of my friends who's an artist in a couple of months, I can just ask them what their new thing is, and then they kind of like will ramble my ear off about art for 25 minutes, and it's the best thing. So if you have a friend who's an artist and you're not, and you don't know what to talk to them about, or things get kind of awkward, just like ask them currently what is their current like art obsession. What are they obsessed with? What thing do they enjoy drawing more than anything else right now? And you'll get an earful. You will get an entire dissertation about what they find fun to draw right now. It's one of my favorite things to do. Alright, I'm gonna switch back to my bigger brush here. Going with some of this like shading. Yeah, that looks good. Also, I really, I don't think I'm gonna do it on this layer, but I really want, yeah, that looks fine. I really want like darker sclera for this character. I don't know why. My brain just says that that's what needs to happen. Alright, now we're gonna go in and draw the hair. Oh, she is over there being very cute. Oh, I said her name and she woke up, damn it. She was being so cute. She's like curled up like a little baby fox. It's always the cutest position when she sleeps, is when she does that. Because sometimes she sleeps like all sprawled out, like a weird little goblin creature, which is what she is. But like when she curls up, like she's this little tiny fox cub, it is the cutest pose. I can't get a picture of her because she hates she hates the camera. She hates my phone. She hates the camera. She hates technology in general. She's not a fan. Because anytime I point a phone camera at her, she immediately decides that now is the time to be ugly. And I know she has control over it. You would think that like, oh, she's a dog, like she doesn't know what she's doing. No, I know she does it on purpose. Because it only happens when I point my phone at her. She will pull this like ugly face, and I think she's associated the idea. She'll either pull like a really ugly face, or she'll move in a way that it's hard to get a picture of her. And I think she's associated the idea that like certain ways of moving, like if I turn my head away, if I don't, you know, pose right, if I move away from the camera or whatever, means that I don't take the photo. And she knows when I've taken the photo because of the like camera shutter sound, because I've noticed she doesn't do this as much when the camera shutter sound is off. Like when my phone is on silent, she still moves away and she still like pretends to be ugly and not like pictures, but she like does kind of give in a little bit. So I've put my camera on silent many a time just to like get a good picture of her. She hates photos. I don't know why. She's like, no pictures please, no paparazzi. It's very funny. But yeah, she's got this like adorable thing going on right now where she's just like curled up like a little fox cub. She's got like her tail laying over her little nose. It's so cute. Favorite dog pose. Favorite dog pose, hands down. Right. I posted something on social media that I'm trying to check on here. Cool. Sorry. Just gotta checking all my posts. Alright, oh man, I'm also like super hella stressed about the interview and reviews that I've got going on soon. They're so stressful. Like I know they're not gonna be like ridiculous or anything. No one's gonna be like super rude to me or anything like that. I just like, I don't know, I just always feel stressed. Like I always feel like my art isn't good enough for these sorts of things, and then when I go into them I'm always like stressed out, and then it like shows on my face, and I'm like, I'm really bad at like acting cool, I guess, or like, you know, like I'm bad at interviews essentially, because the autisms, I'm bad at seeming normal enough to like be hired, and I never know like what the right answer is for things, so I just don't answer. There's just a lot. There's a lot that I'm not talented at when it comes to interviews. Like I can't be bubbly as the one. That always gets me, because like that's just not my personality, and that's also not the personality of the art that I make either. But for some reason, there's this saying in the art world that you can either be nice, talented, or fast, and you can choose two of those traits, but you can't have all of them. And for me, to be successful, essentially, like there are artists who are all of those things, but it's harder to be successful, and there are artists who are none of those things, in my opinion, but it's harder to be successful when you don't have those things. And the ones that are, at least in my opinion, the ones that are weighted for importance are niceness and talented. Speed helps a lot, but if you are super nice and super talented, you'll still get work. And for me, like I like the autism child that I am, I chose talented and fast and not nice. So I don't come off as a nice person in interviews. I never have. I don't come off as hireable or as having an interesting personality, at least in my opinion. I usually come off as nervous and quiet when it comes to interviews. I don't speak often. I'm bad at conveying what I mean, and I get kind of caught up on feeling like I don't belong there, if that makes sense. And this is just like the imposter syndrome thing, but I always feel like when I'm getting interviewed for positions at a company, or I'm getting my portfolio reviewed, I always feel like I don't deserve to be there. That like what I've made is nothing compared to what they've seen the rest of the day, or even from people who are in the same like boat as me, you know. And then I also have the imposter syndrome complex now of like being in my mid to late 20s and not being hired by a company, not being swept up, you know. Like it feels like since I've been doing freelance for so long, it feels like I don't have any proof that I'm good at what I do, because I do so much freelance and I do so much personal work that I don't have any like references. I can't be like, oh, I was hired by Nickelodeon like 10 years ago or anything at my age, where there are other people I know who have these like amazing references where they're like, yeah, I worked for Marvel for, you know, 5 years, and then I wanted to change, so I went with an indie publisher, and then I wanted another change, and just like, you know, things like that happen a lot. And I don't know, I always feel like, since I'm not hired by them currently, that I'm not gonna get the job. And I know it's counterintuitive. I know it's not good for me to think that way, and I try to get myself out of it, but that's just how I end up thinking when I'm like when I'm in the interview. And it's hard to get your brain to not think that when you're in an anxiety-inducing interview. And it doesn't help that I do have really bad anxiety, so I feel super anxious during the interview too, so it's hard to focus, and it's hard to think like, all right, this is your moment, like, do well, think through your responses and things like that. But yeah, it's just a wild time. I also always feel like I haven't made enough in my life, if that makes sense. I know so many people who by the age that they're like, by my age, have a successful comic already. And like, not saying that any of my comics that I've made prior to this are unsuccessful. They were successful for what they were meant to be, which was little short mini comics and little shorts and little like queer porn mag things and things like that. They were successful in that sense, but I don't have like a successful long running comic, which is why I wanted to start Handbasket, because I was like, well, you know what, I need the years I need to have a successful long running comic to be accepted and stuff like that. And it just, like, I'm bad at like talking through things. I'm bad at like, you know, having that interaction and everything. It's just, I don't know. I'd like to go into these things prepared, and I never feel like I am. And I always feel like other people are way more prepared for me than me. And I also always feel like, and I don't know how to say this without sounding rude, because I don't want to sound rude. I don't want to sound like I think of that I think this conspiracy theory, but this is just like a conspiracy theory that my brain always thinks about when I'm like in these situations and I'm stressing out. I always think that other people have gotten like special attention by whoever to train them to be good at this, if that makes sense. Like, to have all these years, like, even if they don't have years of experience in the field of what they're doing, like, I see other people's portfolios, right, and I see what they've made, and it's like, oh crap, what they've made looks like what this company does, you know what I mean? And I go, oh crap, like, what I've made is just what I wanted to make. And I always feel like that's the case. I always feel like they got this like secret intel knowledge of like what the company wants to see, and I didn't. And so they had 3 years or whatever of secret knowledge of like, the thing that's going to be popular in the next 10 years is going to be this or whatever, and the company just immediately like swipes them up. And I always feel like I don't have that. I always feel like when I go into these interviews, I just have my book of like terrible horny vampire men and if vampires aren't popular that year, I'm screwed, and you know, stuff like that. But yeah, this is just my musings on like job opportunities in the art world. I've worked at a lot of places recently, and like doing freelance, and like to get the thing is, like, I don't work at big budget companies, right? To get the work that I get doing freelance, I do stuff like this. I stream, I chat, I am hanging out on social media, you know, I'm being me essentially on social media, and I get people approach me for work. When it comes to big companies, I don't know how to do that sort of professionalism. I'm not good at it. I never learned it. It's a skill I don't have. So when it comes to doing art for larger companies, like, I just don't have the mental capacity to do it, I guess. And like, I don't really know how to get it, is the other thing. Like, as someone with autism, like, I don't know how to train to be good at this stuff either. So I just like kind of go with the flow, go with the punches, and kind of like hope that it works out. And that's been my strategy for years. So I've never quite learned how to get good at it's kind of like similar to the skills of public speaking, and I've never learned how to be good at that. I had a public speaking class in university, but like, I wouldn't say that I'm bad at public speaking. I don't know. I never learned how to manipulate that for my own gain. Like, I'm relatively, the other thing that's odd is I'm really, really good at seeming like I have my shit together. Like, I'm really good at when I'm approached for stuff, seeming like, oh, I don't need you, which is a skill that I've needed to learn with doing freelance. And it's an odd skill, right? But when you do freelance, you kind of have to learn how to treat your clients as if you don't need them. And it's not so much like be rude to your clients, they're worth nothing. It's more treating your clients like, if you walk away from this job, I'll be fine, I'll find other work. And I've kind of had to learn how to do that over the years, and I don't know how to turn that off. So I just come off as like super aloof and super like unneedy, and like I don't want a job, you know? So I don't really know how to interact with stuff like that. Like, I never learned like how to be happy about a place that you work. I don't know if this is making any sense, but for all of my interactions with any sort of employment have always been negative. So I've never and I wouldn't say that like I hated every job I've ever worked for or anything like that. Like, my freelance gigs have been great, but I've always had these interactions with like other workplaces where it's just sort of like, you know, that 9-to-5 grind of just like, oh, I hate working here. I hate that I have to work here in order to eat. I don't like capitalism. And I've never had an experience where I've genuinely liked the place where I work. So I don't really know how to convey like, hey, I'd love to work here, because I've never had the experience of loving working anywhere. So I don't know what it feels like to be like, oh my god, I love your company so much, I'd love to work for you, it'd be so great, it's my dream to work for this place. Like, because my dream isn't to work for a company. I think that's fundamentally the end all. How I come at this is, I've never had the dream of working for anybody else. I've never had when I was younger, I never had like, yeah, sure, I had moments where I was like, oh, it'd be cool to work for Blizzard. Like, that was, and now Blizzard is kind of bleh. But when I was younger, that was kind of the dream, was like, oh, it'd be neat to work for Blizzard. Oh, it'd be neat to work for places like Marvel or whatever. But now, as I'm older and I'm like realizing how these companies function, I kind of like, I would love the stability. I would love to work for a company that could give me stability, that could give me things like healthcare, that could give me a stable job. Love that. That'd be freaking awesome. I'd love to not be moving paycheck to paycheck every week. However, like, you sacrifice so much freedom for that, and as much as I'd love the stability, like, I also love my freedom of being able to draw whatever I want whenever I want, being able to stream whenever I want, being able to whatever. And I know that, like, myself as an artist, like, I know I'm not going to get the coveted job, you know, where it's like I am the front runner on this book that they want. I'm the illustrator that they want to hire. I'm gonna get, if I work for a company like this, I'm gonna get pencil someone else's work. Like, that's gonna be my job. And not that I would hate doing that. Like, I don't mind being a penciler. I don't mind being an inker. I don't mind doing illustration work, like for covers, doing penciling and inking for covers. Like, I'm fine with pretty much any way that this could go. It's just that, like, I haven't learned how to be excited about that. Like, I don't know how to, even though I don't mind it. I think the difference is that I don't express excitement over it. When I'm in these, whenever I've been in job interviews, it's like, oh, do you read our comics? And I'm like, to be honest, no, I don't have time. You know, like, and I know that you're supposed to lie when you're asked about that sort of stuff, and I try to, but then they're like, oh, what's your favorite one? And I'm like, because I don't idolize other people, I guess, is the main thing. Like, I've never been a person that, like, idolizes people because they're people, and I've always been very, like, factual about, like, I wouldn't say always, I used to when I was younger. I guess maybe I'm like, I've grown out of it. Over the years, I've seen that people can be horrible, and I want nothing to do with them, you know? So, like, I'm not a person that comes into these interviews like, oh my god, you're so-and-so from this company. I just treat them like people, and I think in some ways, like, I wouldn't say all, and I don't want to, like, portray the art community or the comics community or the illustration community like they're all, you know, terrible narcissists who are horrible and you shouldn't work for them. Like, but there are some people in the community who, when they're looking to hire someone for something, they're looking for someone who does idolize the company, or idolizes the person, or it's like, oh, my dream is to work with this other artist, or my dream is to whatever. And I'm just sort of like, I like other artists. I think they're neat. I think they're cool people. I'd love to talk to them, chat with them one day. Like, I've got a list of other artists that I think are neat. Most of them are not comic artists. I mean, to be honest, like, one of the artists I've wanted to meet for years has been Peter Moorbacker, and I freaking love that guy. Like, and I also, I don't know, I guess I have this other, this might be related to imposter syndrome, but I have this other, like, thought process, or, like, mentality of, like, if I don't meet my idols, I can't, their image can't be destroyed in my brain. So I kind of, like, self-sabotage so that I never have to go through that hurt of, like, realizing that the person that I like is kind of a shitlord. So Peter Moorbacker, I'm sure, is a great person. Same with, like, Braum. I love Braum's art. I'm sure they're both great people, but, like, I will actively not meet them if the opportunity arises, because I don't want to learn that they're shit-ass people. And I feel like I also do that with like companies that I would like to work for. Like everyone's like, who would you like to work for? And in my opinion, like, I don't want to work for companies that I think are really good, because I'm afraid that I will work for them and then I will learn that they're not great, and then I will be upset. Or even to this point, like I am like a raging leftist and I don't know how to shut my mouth. And I'm afraid that if I worked for a company where that was not chill, that like I wouldn't know what to do with myself. I wouldn't know how to talk online if I wasn't a raging leftist and yelling about like social justice stuff all the time. So I'm always scared that I'll end up working for a company and like end up caring about my job and my healthcare, and then end up having that like kind of hung over me in order to be like, hey, stop talking about that thing that you spoke about on your stream or whatever. And I'm scared about people having that kind of leverage over me. So I don't know, but that's a lot of like my own insecurities and anxieties and stuff, and it's a big reason why I self-sabotage a lot. And I'm trying to like get out of it nowadays, now that I'm like no longer in terrible abuse land. I'm starting to try to learn to like step out of those moments and let myself have nice things, essentially. So yeah. Sorry, I'm like checking social media right now. I'm dying of laughter. So there's, okay, this is gonna be some fun shenanigans that we're gonna talk about today. There's this person that wanted a commission from me a while ago, and they asked for a commission, and they asked for my prices, and I gave them my price list, which is for what they wanted. I was like, $80 for what you want. Here's, you know, all of my price list. Here's how all of that's gonna work out. It's $80, you know, deal with it. And their response to that was posting on social media that I trace all of my art, and that that they are not paying $80 for a traced piece of trash, essentially. And then they have the audacity, they still follow me on social media. They still follow me on Twitter, and they, I think, still follow me on Instagram as well. Yeah, they still follow me on Instagram. So every time I post anything on Instagram, they have the audacity to like whatever I make. It's everything I post, they like it. And they never comment or say anything, but I know personally that they have sent me an email that says that I trace all of my art, none of my art is real. And yet they like follow me still, and they still interact with me and everything. And they said this on Facebook. So they made a Facebook post a while ago, and I was like glancing friends with them on Facebook. I have something like, I think, 600 friends on Facebook, so like I don't know everyone on my friends list, but they were like friends of a friend or something, and I added them a while back, and they posted on Facebook like, hey, I have this idea for like a creature that I want to design, that I want like someone to draw. I'm looking for an artist. Hey, artists, you know, drop your information below. And I said like, hey, I'm an artist, I work freelance, I do commissions, like here's my list of things, here's my email, you can email me. So they emailed me, they gave me the information about what they wanted, they gave me the information about what they, you know, what kind of design they wanted, and I was like, cool, so for what you listed, that sounds like you want a full body illustration, and it sounds like you want a character, you know, illustration, character pose, and that's going to be $80. And $80 is actually pretty low for a full body illustration. If you know anything about the art world, like artists I know charge some artists charge upwards of $200, and I'm not like that. But I was like, yeah, it's going to be about $80, cause my base price for a full illustration, or a full page of anything. So like a comic page, an illustration, my base price is $75. Because it was an illustration and they wanted a unique character and they wanted a design, I was like $80, because that's a flat rate. And $75 per page. Pages generally take anywhere from like 2 to 5 hours, so that's not bad. It's nowhere near $15 an hour, so it's not even min wage. But yeah, that's what I suggested. And then immediately after that, they made a Facebook post, vague posting about me. They didn't say my name, so kind of plausible deniability that they can ever say it's me. But like, I know it's me because they mentioned how much I charged. So they made a Facebook post that said, how can these, artists be out here wanting $80 for trace art? Because I also sent them some samples. I was like, hey, this is the kind of art that I made recently. So I sent them, I was looking for good art that I had made recently, and I didn't have a lot because my style was in like a transitioning point at that point. And I was like, I don't really have anything that is indicative of my current style, but I do have some old Lord of the Rings fan art, an old drawing of Noctis, and an old drawing of Vincent van Gogh. And I was like, I'll just do that. I have some of those, put those in, there we go. And I sent it out. And yeah, they made that post. I was like, how did these artists want $80 for trace art? And I think what they thought, because it was fan art, and it was specifically, actually, I'm just gonna pull it up if I have it. I don't know if I have the image. And this is gonna make the stream a little bit jumpy. Sorry about that. But I'm just gonna pull up the art that I had. Let's go to my art page. Let's go to illustration. I think it's in illustration still. I'm not sure. It might not be. I might have to go to my media folders and look those up. Sorry, I've been rambling about this and not working on the piece in front of me, but I just kind of want to like chat about it and like explain. Let's go to my sites. I also need to pay my dues for my website again. My website costs $100 a month. This freaking sucks. Alright, let's go media. And let's go to scroll down here. And you'll probably get a glimpse of what my website looks like in this, or not what my website looks like, but like the back end of my website since I'm using the media page. Okay. And then I'm gonna change it on Streamlabs so that you can see the Google Chrome tab that I'm using. It's new scene, Google Chrome. Adding a new source. Sorry, this is taking a bit. I don't have like buttons set up for this yet, so this might be a little bit odd with the stream. All right, we want to capture a window, and we want to capture we want to capture Google. Let's add a new source. Google. Add source. I don't want to capture Streamlabs. I want to capture Chrome. There we go. Okay. Done. And you can see the back end of what my art used to look like. This is like years ago. Let me pull the Google tab a little bit over. Shrink this window a little bit. so you can see more. Also, I'm going to hide the corner tab as well. So yeah, this is back in, what is the list of this? September 2009. This is like really old art of mine that I sent in. And I think I sent in that drawing of Hector right there. Or 2009, 2010. What is this? Let's look. What year is this? 2018, 2019. Okay. Not 2009, not super old. But yeah, 2019, 2018. So I sent this drawing of Hector, and I sent this drawing over here. And these are the drawings that I sent. I also sent, what is it? Where are we? Where's my Van Gogh? I also sent this, and the drawing of Noctis, which I don't think is in here. Aha, no, it is. It's right there. So that one was 2017, but I was just sending in like painting styles to kind of show what my painting style was at the time. So you can see, let me check and make sure Streamlabs is capturing this. Yeah. Shrink Streamlabs up a little bit. What? That's not what I wanted to do. Like this. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, you can see that this is some Hobbit fan art that I have done. And this, I think, is the bone of contention with this person, because they were like traced fan art or traced art. And what I want to tell you is that none of these images are traced, and none of these images show up in the actual like Hobbit movies. None of this are things like, if you were to go scene by scene, they look like images that show up in the Hobbit movies, right? Like they look like that these are things that happen, but they're not. If you go scene by scene, you will not find scenes where you could line up the lines of each of these to a movie scene. At least I don't think. I haven't done it, but I don't think you could. These are all things that, like, I watched the Hobbit movies and I was like, oh, the vibe of this is this. And you can kind of tell that by, like, I don't know how this armor is structured, so it's just really blurry. And same with, like, and this is even my older painting style. This is like years ago painting style. But yeah, like all of this, they're inspired by the Hobbit movies. There are some similarities. I think the biggest similarities are these two images, this one here and this one with the winter scene, and this one with Bilbo with the map. But either way, like, there's even, okay, another thing as well, right? Even if you could take these scenes and immediately line them up with a movie and see them being traced like that, that does not mean that they are traced art. Because what makes a piece of art is what you do with the drawing, right? So there are people out there who take photographs of a person, right? And they take all the lines and contours of the face and they do something else with the face. They shade it, they whatever. There are people that do that, and they take a photograph and they trace all the lines of the face, and then they do a chalk drawing that looks exactly like that face. And that's still art. I personally don't think that it is a, like, not that it's not legit art, but I personally don't think that it is a more complex or harder to do piece of art, because it's not coming from, like, your mentality, but it takes a set of skills that me, as someone who draws from memory a lot and as someone who does a lot of fantasy work, it takes a set of skills that I don't have, right, to do something like that that looks like reality. And you can see that there are some anatomy bits on these pieces that are not accurate. Like this eye over here and the way this nose is shaped is too thin, and I did these pieces quickly and I was like, that anatomy is wrong. Oh well, I'm just gonna go with it, right? But so this is the pack of paintings that I sent to this person. We're just gonna go through it. This is the painting of Hector that I sent to this person, and looking at it now, like, there's a lot of elements of this painting that I still enjoy, that I still like, but, and you can even see my old signature right there. I used to have a signature that looked like a sun. So, but this is the painting of Hector that I sent in. This is the Van Gogh painting that I sent in, right? And this is the Noctis painting that I sent in. I only sent in one Final Fantasy thing because I hadn't really done a lot of Final Fantasy fan art at the time. But yeah, this is what I sent. Now, they don't look like super professional to me, and it is my old painting style. I think the newest one at the time of sending these was the Hector piece. This was the newest piece of art that I had sent in. At the time, I think this was the oldest one, right? And I was so distraught. I was so angry because the person didn't even give much of a chance. And also another thing you can see with this one, even if I took these pieces and I traced directly from them, right? These color palettes here, these are color palettes that I took from the movies, right? Like, they're color palettes that I took from scenes from the movies. So it's not like I took this and immediately like traced directly the movie and then it directly painted the movie scene on top of it. And even doing that would be real art. But they're color palettes that I took from different scenes in the movies and tried to make them work for these pieces. You can see here that I was thinking about the composition of the piece because I have these color palettes, and I sent this image as one image with all of those in. I have images here with just the specific paintings, like with just those illustrations. Like, if I go here, go to edit, scroll through, but yeah, see, I have ones with just the singular illustration, and I could have sent that in, but I didn't. I sent it as one big piece with all of those color palettes in there, and they still had the audacity to be like traced art, which, by the way, I think is really amusing now, looking at all this art, all this stuff on here that is all really old. Like, there's pieces here from 2016. You want to see what I used to make when I was in university? This is a university piece that I did. Way different, right? It's been years, but you can still see that it is my art. You can still see the art style in there, right? Way different. So yeah, I am a bitter asshole. I will forever be bitter about that. Also, way down here, there's some really old concept stuff for Handbasket that's really fun. Actually, we're gonna look at that and then we'll get back to what I was drawing. Sorry, I just really like looking at really old stuff because I think it helps other artists to see what someone's art looked like years ago, or at least it helped me when I was younger as an artist. It helped me look at other people's stuff and be like, oh wow, their art has really changed. So like, really old stuff for Handbasket here. Here's some really old comics I used to do years ago. You want to see what my comics used to look like? We'll do that. I'll show you that. So which one should I show you? Oh no, I've got a piece selected. Oh, it's the Noctis one. Let's get rid of that. My comics used to look like, let's go with this. Let's go here. My comics used to look like this. Way weird, right? The hand right there in that first panel and the drawing of the cocktail is really good, but the rest of it is way different. This is a comic series that I used to do called Drunk Tales, and it was me and a bunch of my friends having drinks and like getting progressively more wasted, and getting like progressively worse throughout the night. Like, this is Drunk Tales, and the person in this comic, and the reason why this comic is never up, is not up anywhere, is because this person was my abuser. So I no longer have this comic anywhere that you can read. But I had a whole host of, I think I did, if I think about it, I mean, they're like 1-page little comics, so they're not like, but I think I did a lot of runs of Drunk Tales. I think I did 10, maybe 15 of Drunk Tales on its own like specific Tumblr, which is now shut down. And I host the URL now. Like I still have the URL. I just make the Tumblr completely blank because I don't want to see that comic anywhere, essentially. But yeah, this is Drunk Tales. This is how my comics used to look. Let's see, what else do we have here? Comics used to look like this as well. Very sketchy. But yeah, so this is gonna be fun. So this was me making the logo for Handbasket. And the very first art for Handbasket. Where is my very first art for Handbasket? Where is it? It's in here somewhere. It's in this sketch somewhere. It's in my sketchbook somewhere. I know it's back here. There's more panels of Drunk Tales down here. I also used to do product design, so I have some product design stuff. Like, here's some really old product design stuff for Ace of Cups, which was a tea line. So there's the Ace of Cups product design stuff. Where's my really old Handbasket art? It's got to be in here somewhere. Here we go. This is the really old Handbasket art. Really old drawings of Ix. God, going down art memory lane. This is all university stuff. This is all stuff that I made during university. All of these pages that you're seeing with like this text on it is all stuff for Handbasket that I wrote out. This was like my pitch. I made an animatic. I no longer have the animatic. I deleted it, but these are scenes from the animatic. And this was me being an edgy edgelord, because I made very edgelordy backdrop and stuff. I also have this illustration. Where is it? Somewhere there's the final version of that illustration. I don't know where it is, but I have the illustration that was meant to be the cover of Handbasket. Here's the sketch of it. I was meant to be the cover at one point. Super edgelord shit, right? Here's what was meant to be pages. Also super edgelord shit. Very sketchy too, like very not well done. Is this another page? Yeah. So yeah, these were meant to be sketch pages of Handbasket. These were meant to be the pages. And they're not good. They're really not good. But yeah, there's the pages. There's my very old art, my very old stuff. None of it was professional. None of it was hireable. Here's some like really old drawings of Ix. Oh, this was back when his name was something different. His name was Nihilo at one point. Changed his name to Ix. Here's some more concept art for Ix that I could pull up. This was back when I used to draw. This was me trying to draw like superhero comics, because I had a comics professor who was like, oh, I'd love to see what this character looked like as like if you put him in hero comic style, because this was the same professor that was like, men don't have eyelashes. So I was like trying to draw in that style, and I was not experienced with it at all. So I was like attempting my best guess of how to make that style work, and it just wasn't working. I also made, if I can find what I was looking for, I also made a comic a long time ago called Speech Swindle. And it was like a mini comic, and it's right here. It's all this purple, and my first attempt at screen printing. This was my first screen printed comic. and it was actually pretty cute. Not gonna lie, I liked it a lot. And that was back when I also used to call my comics solar panels, which I stopped doing, but it was very fun when I used to. But yeah, these are pages of speech swindle that are kind of cute. Let's go to edit and see what they look like. But yeah, it was about this thief that stole words, specifically slang words. And when he gets to YOLO, he doesn't. It's very, very cute. And it was all done in this like purple and black. And he would like steal some of them, he would pop them, he would like use a vacuum to like suck them up, and it was very cute. I also did a mini comic at the same time, I think it was the same year, related to like getting asked out. And not getting asked out, but like me asking someone out, and I really liked this person. Still have a crush on them to this day. But yeah, it was related to that. And I also made a comic that was, I think these are just sketches of it. Yeah, that was related to like this monster boy that got scared by encountering a human in the wild. But yeah, that's what my art used to look like, guys. And that was 2016. So it is 5 years later. 5 years later. And my art is so much more much improved. Like, and it takes all these years that you see of all this like kind of mediocre art to get there. All of this. And now we're to the point where my art looks like this. Like that, right? Like, it took years. It took years of work. So to have someone, after I've been accepted to art school and I've been improving my art for years. I've been drawing since I was a child, but I went to art school in 2012, and I've been improving my art since that moment. And to have the growth that I've had in 5 years, and to have someone be like, traced art, and then they still follow me, like, I keep this person around specifically because I think if I can have this person follow me still and see what I do and like kind of prove them wrong. Like, I'm just so vindictive. Like, I honestly, every time I post anything, every time I like show anything online of my art, I want this person to see it, and I want to be like, no, you know what, fuck you. Like, I love how we got like a really good hardcore guitar thing going right now. But yeah, I live for the spite of it all. That is honestly the reason why I do so much of my art. So much of what I create is literally just out of spite. It is me being like, no, you know what? You want to say that like my art is bad or that you're not paying $80 for it? Well, screw you. I make what I make. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not ashamed of where I was years ago either. I'm not ashamed that my art looked terrible, and I know it did. Like, I'm the first to admit that. But for me to have all this growth and then to have this person say that, I'm so mad. I'm so upset. And like, full transparency, there were elements of my old art, like looking back, that like they're not traced, but where I had like taken photos, and like the big thing with the way that I got good at art is that I would take photos and I would deconstruct them, and I would learn where the lines happened and where the shadows happened in those photos. And years ago, I was terrible at doing that. I didn't have that like trained eye that you have to have as an artist. I didn't know how to separate out, because like I have a specific eye condition and I don't see depth. My brain doesn't process depth, but I didn't have like that special eye. Ooh, geez, that's loud. But I didn't have that like special eye to see how shadows and tones and stuff worked in pieces of art. And for years, my art style looked really haphazard and not well put together. It looked like every time I would draw something, it'd be different. Like, and I had to go through that stage to get to where I am now. Because like I would focus heavily on one thing, and I would draw, when I would draw things, like say the way that I wanted to draw an eye, right? I would draw, and I know I do the eye example a lot, it's just because I like to draw eyes, but I don't even know if I could mimic it, but say this is how I would draw eyes now, but say this was the style that I was aspiring to go from, right? I would take this eye and I would deconstruct it. So I would make another layer and I would go, okay, I like how this person draws eyes. I'm going to draw over top of it and go, okay, so this is the type of arch that I give that eye. And then a few minutes later, I'd be like, okay, so that's the arch, copied, not like traced, but copied directly. Like I was training my hand to do exactly what that person did. Do this, and then I'd be like, okay, this. And then it's like, okay, center of the eye, and then I'd be like this, and then delete that layer, right? And I would erase out my trace thing and then bring this layer back, and you can see that this eye is slightly different, but it looks very similar to this one. And I would do that for everything. I would get like reference images and I would take the reference and I'd be like, okay, I like how this person is posed. I'm going to trace the leg, I'm going to trace the calf, and then I'm going to draw the calf again. And these two look so similar, but they're not the same lines. And I would do that for everything. And that's how I got better at drawing. But because I was doing that for everything, I would do it for things, and then I would like not fully have it in my brain, and I wouldn't do that I wouldn't find reference for every image I was drawing. So some of my drawings, some of my art would go with the new way that I was drawing things, and some of my art would go with the old way, and it wouldn't mesh together. It was like I hadn't yet learned how I wanted to draw certain things, and I ran into a lot of issues with stuff like that because my art wasn't consistent, and people don't think about that if they're not in the art world. They don't think about consistency, and when you're training as an artist, you are not learning. It's not so much that you're learning to draw, because most people who go to school for art already can draw. Like, I could already draw when I went to school for art. You're learning consistency. You're learning to pull from your brain, from like a brain trove in the back of your head. Like, okay, I want this character, like what I'm doing right now, I want this character to have blunt bangs. I am pulling from the trove inside my head right now for people I've seen with blunt bangs, characters I have seen with blunt bangs, how those bangs fall on the face, where the shadows go, all that stuff. And it's really about building that back of the head, like, trove, that knowledge, more so than it is about learning to draw, because it's like anyone can learn to draw. Drawing, if you have that reference and you're sitting next to it and like you can easily like reference back to it, drawing is not difficult. That's not the difficult part of learning to be an artist. The difficult part of learning to be an artist is learning how to visualize things in your head when it's not in front of you, number one, and number two, even if it is in front of you, even if you're an artist that works primarily from reference, it is learning to have that trove in the back of your head. Even artists who work from reference have it, where they will have a thing in the back of their head that says, okay, so I'm working from reference, this is what this person looks like, but I want to better this image somehow. I want to make it look good. I want to make it look realistic. And when you're working, like, I'm not someone who works realistically, but when you're working in the realism genre, one of the big things that you have to learn that I didn't know because I was bad at art when I was younger and making the pieces that I just showed you, but one of the things you have to think about is how you can amplify things like the lighting, things like the style of things, the pose of things, to make them still look real, but make them more. One thing that, like, I had a friend that was really good at realism, and one thing that he always said was that it isn't about drawing something exactly as it is. It's about drawing the thing in the best way that it could exist. It's almost like tapping into another reality and drawing the best possible reality of that thing. That's what he explained it to me as. Because yes, while you can just flat out trace the shadows and the highlights and every bit of that image, even if you do that, it's not going to come across as good art. Most of the time it just comes across as, cool, your art looks exactly like a photograph. How did you do it? Oh, you just trace the lighting. Makes sense. And no one's going to be impressed by that. What comes across as great art when you do stuff like realism like that is managing to use the human eye to your advantage and being able to, like, blend and blur elements of the piece and still make it read as a photograph. And then when you look closer, there are these closer elements that, like, get even more and more blurred out or add something to the detail or anything like that. That's how you make stuff that, like, basically is photorealism, copying photos, look like good art. It's learning those, like, back end practices of, like, in my brain, you know, what is a good lighting scheme for this, even if it's similar to the lighting that's already there. What is a good lighting practice that will make this look its best and stuff. So that's mostly what you learn in art school. I know a lot of people think, oh, if I had went to art school, I would learn to draw. It's like, I didn't take any classes that were about drawing. We had classes that were named drawing whatever, but they were not about drawing the thing. In most of my classes, they just assumed that you knew how to draw. Like, they literally would just be like, oh, you're all artists, you know how to draw. And there were people in our school who were not there for visual arts, who took these classes and still had to draw as if they were people who were there for visual arts. So we had photographers who were like, I don't know how to draw. And it was really funny. But yeah, the classes were predicated on this idea that everyone knows how to draw. Drawing is not hard. And the photographers in our classes did really, really well, despite being like, I don't know how to draw, because their eyes were trained to see those, like, highlights and shadows and things like that, and trained to communicate them really well on the page. A lot of the photographers in our classes got better grades than the illustrators, because the illustrators were working from fantasy and were not trained at doing it yet, and the photographers were already trained to see like that and were working in realism. Just like little small art things. That's not to say that none of the illustrators in our classes were good. Like, all of them were great illustrators, just that different skill sets, essentially. But yeah, that's some fun art facts for you if you haven't gone to art school and you don't know much about the art world. Like, learning to draw is not the hard part. Learning to see the correct way, learning to put things in the correct places, that's the hard part. That's the part that I struggled the most with. Still to this day struggle with. if I'm being totally honest. There's a lot of moments, if you ever see me on the stream, stalling out a lot while I'm working and like being like, I'm gonna work on this, oh no, I'm not liking how this is looking, I'm like stressing out. If you ever see that happen, that's because I'm still in the stage where I'm like heavily learning what it is to draw stuff like that, and I haven't built up that mentality yet. And you can see it in me, of like me being kind of not confident in some of that stuff, being like, I don't have the mental brain memory of what a spoon looks like, hold on, or like when I need to go look at reference and things. That's what all that is about. But yeah, I'm getting kind of close to being done with this. I just need to do the bottom tail part, add in some of that detail and add in some of the detail over here, but it's coming along pretty well. I quite like some of the elements that I added. I think I need to add some more stuff back here, since I have this like donut on this side that's taking up so much space, so much like, you know, clear area there. So I think I do need to add in something on that side to sort of even it out. Maybe something like that sticks out over here. But yeah, maybe like a candy bar or something. I don't know. I'll think of something. I'm just gonna finish up this for the rest of the stream. Where are we at here? We just hit 3 hours. Wow, I said at 3 hours I was gonna quit, but I really want to finish the lines of this, so I'm gonna finish up the lines and then I'll quit. I just really want these lines fully done, fully squared away. That way I can rest easy about it, and when I come back to doing stuff, I'll have a bit more of a mentality, or a bit more of like a confidence around finishing this piece. Plus I still have to do all of the other Mermay drawings if I'm gonna be participating in Mermay. I'm not even sure if I'm going to. It's just so much work, and I already have the comic I need to do, I have the pages I need to finish, I have a bunch of commissions I'm behind on. Just, this is what always happens when these, like, I was excited about doing this piece because I thought I would have time, because I never have time in the summer, but this is what always happens whenever I have these pieces that are related to, like, you know, doing some sort of art challenge. This is what happens. I always end up not having time for it and then being sad. Alright, I really want to add... I had to like center this a little bit, so I'm changing the fin structure slightly here. Because I don't want the fin structure to be weird, so that would mean over here it'd be another one of these little fin dudes. Just trying to add a bunch of detail in here. But yeah, I know I've said this, I've like mentioned it before or harped on it before. Never tell an artist that their work is traced. That's like the rudest thing that you could ever say to an artist, even if you think it's true. Don't do it. It's a bad idea. Like the worst, the nicest thing you will get is an artist who is vindictive like me, who will not leave you alone. If this person were to unfriend me on social media, or like, obviously if they blocked me I couldn't do anything about it, but if they were to unfriend me on social media, I would just find another social media of theirs and friend them again. Like, I am vindictive enough that I'm like, no, witness me. you will witness me doing good art. And like, in a way, I kind of have to thank them, because a lot of what they did, this was 2018 or it had to have been 2018 or 2019 when I had this interaction. But from them doing that, I think it was 2019, because I started streaming in late 2020. So I think late 2019 is when I encountered them and had this, and I remember ranting about it for a couple of months and then thinking I'm gonna do something about that. This person is the reason why I started streaming. Their comments were the reason why I was like, I need to start taking my art seriously, and I need to start practicing my art seriously, and I need to start being real serious about this, like, if I want people to take me seriously. Because I was just I was behaving like a hobby artist for so long, because I thought I wasn't good enough. So I was like, I didn't want to like force people to like what I was doing, and I felt awkward asking for commissions. I felt awkward being on social media, because I was like, there's so many other people who are so much more talented and who need it much more. And I still think that as an artist, like, and this is going to come across like really funny as someone who's like currently streaming what I'm drawing, but I still think that there are much better artists to follow, and I will always say that. And I usually will direct people to better artists to follow, and most of them either being my friends or just people that I think are really good. So like, I was in that mindset of like, I'm not good enough to deserve a following or to put my art out there, and I'm crawling out of it now, thanks to this person, because when they said that to me, it brought me back to like high school. It brought me back to being a talented little artist. And like, I say talented, but I was no prodigy at art. Art was the thing I had to work at. Definitely, I was really good at music, and I will always say that like, music was the thing that I was effortlessly good at. Music was the thing that and like, this is gonna sound braggy, this is gonna sound like, you know, whatever, and you can think whatever you want about me when I say this, I don't care, but yeah, music was the thing that I was effortlessly good at. It was the thing I never had to practice. I literally did not have to practice. I got first and second chair on a lot of my like concert band stuff. When I was in marching band, I was a squad leader for 3 years, or 2 years. I think you had to be a junior. But yeah, I was a squad leader for 2 years in marching band. I never practiced, like, I practiced the songs that we needed to learn for band, but I never had to practice to be good at them. I practiced only when we were in a group and everyone else was practicing. When I took my music stuff home, and did not have to work on it. I remember being 5 years old and being given a piano, and kind of to just mess around, like being given a keyboard, and my parents were just like, oh, you know, it's cute. I was also given my dad's old guitar, which I think he still has. But I was given like musical instruments when I was very young, and my mother has this great story of me when I was little, listening. Like, my mother always put on classical music for me, because having the autisms, she had to have something that would calm her kids down, and she would use different types of classical music to mean different things. And I personally, one of my favorite classical songs, like, I loved Beethoven, and one of my favorite classical songs was The Fifth, and I was sat down in front of a keyboard, a piano for the first time, and immediately played out the first few notes, not chords, like obviously I wasn't trained on piano, but the first few, like bum 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 bum, like notes, without hearing the song, without being taught what those notes were, and my mother just being astonished and being like, what did you just play? And me being like, the song that that you always play. Like, I didn't know what it was even called, but I was just like, yeah, I heard it and I played it, and I still have that. I am still in, as far as music goes, I still have that ear of like, I hear it, I play it. When we had to do things for marching band, when we had to do like different parts and stuff like that, I didn't learn very well from like looking at the music. I can sight read now, but I wasn't the type of musician that like had to sight read to learn the thing. So I would hear our band director play the solo, and I would be able to play it from hearing him play it. And like, as things get more complicated, you do have to start practicing, and I did have to start practicing over time. And like, obviously if I were to take a career in music, I would probably have to still practice. I'm not saying that I'm some like savant prodigy at music that like never would, that like is so talented that I would have never had to practice or anything like that. I'm just saying that like, music for me was the innate talent. It was the thing that I was born with, and art was the thing that I had to get real good at. So when this person said this to me over those pieces that I sent, it took me back to high school, and people being mad and upset that I was good at music, and thinking that I cheated to get the solo. Or I also had people like, I was good at art, and I was kind of the art teacher's pet. I had several hours of my day dedicated to sitting in the art room. I had graduated so many of my classes that I could just like, basically my only motivation for finishing AP classes 2 years before I needed to was so that I could have a free period to sit in the art room. And so many of my classmates who wanted to be good at art were admittedly, and I think rightfully, jealous of not only that, but jealous of the fact that like, I was good at art. And like, I don't want to talk badly about these people, because a lot of them are people that I have really fond memories of, and that I really liked as people. And like, some of them I'm still friends with to this day. But yeah, like, there was this like jealousy factor, and on top of being kind of like bullied in school by like other kids, I was also semi-bullied by my friends because I was good at something and they were mad that I was good at it. So they would tell me that like I traced it and that I was bad at art and stuff, and it was real shitty. And like, kids are bad to each other, and I don't blame them for it. It's fine. Like, nowadays I think back on it and I'm just like, that's hilarious, considering that I'm an illustrator now professionally, and went to art school, got accepted to art school and all that stuff. Like, funny to me now. But yeah, they said some really horrible things, and like, you know, getting that email is just, I got immediate flashbacks to that time in my life, and I was like, it's almost like you start seeing red. And I just was like, no, I'm not gonna let that be the narrative. I'm not gonna let this person talk me out of feeling okay about myself and feeling happy with how I've grown as an artist. And so I was just like, I'm gonna start streaming. I'm gonna show people that I don't trace my art. Like, the best way to refute that statement is to literally just show you. And here I am. So that's like, screw that person for saying what they did, but like, thanks for kicking me in the butt and forcing me to get better and do better. And like, be here to stream, even though I stream to no one a lot of the time. I'm still motivated to do it because I think that it kind of shows something about me, or at least I hope it does. I hope it kind of bridges that gap and like shows like, hey, I'm a real ass person. I really do draw like this. This is really my art style. This is actually how I work, and like I can show some back end stuff of how I finish things, how I get things done, like all that stuff. And like I think if doing this can help other artists to see like, hey, you're not wrong for downloading brushes and using a brush to draw all of these strawberries. You're not less of an artist for that if you don't hand draw every single strawberry. Like if that information can help somebody out there, like I'm sure as fuck gonna do it, because there's too much of that in the art world, and most of it is people who don't know anything about art, who go around like, and just as a clarification, freaking what is his name? Danny Phantom guy. Forget his name now. Butch Hartman. Freaking Butch Hartman. What Butch Hartman did is, yes, terrible and should not be condoned in any way. Hate that man. Terrible man. What he did on like tracing people's art and then selling it is horrible, and I'm upset that he did that, and like I'm in no way saying that what he did was fine, but like artists do what people would call tracing often as both practice and as both practice and as a way to learn about the world and to develop those like senses and that's eye to be able to see how things work and to be able to deconstruct things. Like that is something that we do. The difference is that's not work that you sell, right? And I'm like, I know this is kind of convoluted and kind of like getting out of hand, but like I'm not saying that like the art that I showed that person who said these things about me was traced. I'm just saying that like someone who does trace art does not immediately make them not an artist. Like, not trace art, but like trace their reference. That doesn't make them not an artist. A lot of people trace their reference to try to figure out how it's built, to try to figure out how you could draw it, how you can convey that image, to figure out the lines, to figure out the contours, to figure out the shading. Plenty of people do that, but they do it in practice on their own, and they don't sell it. The difference is the sale of it. And so many people don't know that. So many people think that artists just magically have this in the backs of our brains. And the only people who do have that are people who have trained for years to have that magical knowledge in the back of their head. Like even me, I don't think that my brain library of things that I can draw is that big. To this day, there are moments where I want to draw something and I think that I'm not doing it right because that brain library in my head isn't great. Like, I can't hash out something like a spoon without looking at what a spoon looks like, you know? And that's how a lot of artists are. That's how a lot of people, even professional illustrators, even people like me, are about their work. Like, they have to go look it up. They have to go look at what it looks like, how it's built, and all that stuff. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with doing that. And I'm tired of like people who aren't in the art world being like, ah yes, like if you ever draw over something or trace anything, you're immediately not an artist. And it's like, no, you can trace things, you just shouldn't sell traced work, because that's morally bad and that isn't your idea. That's the difference there, friend. And you also shouldn't pass off traced work as your own, which Butch Hartman also did. But because of Butch Hartman, there's this huge flux of like people who aren't in the art world. And when I say art in the art world, I don't mean that these people like don't draw, or that these people don't could never be good at drawing or whatever. Like, I'm not trying to other these people. Some of, like, the person that said this to me was actually is actually really talented at other stuff that I consider to be art. So it's just that they weren't an illustrator, and that's the difference. But like, you know, people who aren't in the art world, there's been this whole influx of people who have been like, ah, yes, you know, if we can gotcha them, we can catch them in the act of, like, you know, doing the thing. So they're just like always out here looking for somebody to gotcha. They're always out here looking for, you know, how can I prove that this person is trying to swindle me with their bad art takes. And it's really bad, which is like, that's the whole reason that, like, artists like me hate Butch Hartman so much, because we're just like, now you've ruined it. Now you've made it so that people are outwardly looking for someone like you. They think they're being tricked all the time. I've had so many commission people being like, I've never had a commission before, I don't know how it works, but like, I just don't want to be swindled. And it's like, dude, so many artists are not out here to swindle you. Not like, Butch Hartman is a one-person case. And yeah, there are artists out here that are shitty. There are artists out here that'll take your money. But like, they're few and far between, and most of us are really good people. So I cannot stress enough that if an artist gives you a price for something and you think it's too much, maybe try looking at why you think that. Like, start looking at, hey, what is the minimum wage? Is the minimum wage $15 an hour? If I advocate, the other thing that I found absolutely hilarious about this person is that they're, from what I can see, a leftist, and believe that, like, at least if they're not a leftist, they're at least a liberal, and believe that the minimum wage should be raised, and like share stuff like that, all that stuff. So like, if you believe that the minimum should be $15 an hour, right, and you think that artwork that costs $80 is too much for a full body drawing of a thing, right? $15 an hour means that you would be, I mean, doing the math, you would end up with, sorry, I'm doing math in my brain, but like, you know, $15 an hour, let's say you, well, we can use this piece that I'm doing right now as an example. So this piece has a backdrop, right? $15 an hour for this piece. I have worked on this piece exclusively during the stream. So if we look at how long I've worked on this piece, I have exclusively only worked on it while I was streaming, meaning that the last stream plus this one, last stream was about 3 hours, this one we're going on 3 hours and 30 minutes, that's 6 hours, $15 an hour plus for the 6 hours that I worked on this piece, and I'm not even done with it, would be, let's do the math, let's pull it up. And this is just me, my own leisure work, right? So let's even be generous. Let's say that with all of the breaks, with everything that I do, with these talkie moments where I'm not drawing, right? Let's say that I worked on this piece for only 4 hours. I'm being generous, giving myself, you know, leeway. 4 times $15 an hour is $60. And I'm not done with this piece yet. I still have to color it. I still have to add line work. I still have to add every other detail piece that I want for this. $60. I'm already up to more than half of what I charged that person for an $80 illustration. More than half. So if you advocate for $15 an hour for people, for minimum wage, and then you say that $80 for a drawing is too much, get out. Do not watch my stream anymore. Don't talk to me. I don't want to be your friend. I don't want you here. And that's going to sound harsh, and I know no one's in the chat right now, but if you're watching this later down the line, and that's the mentality that you come to, I don't want to interact with you. I don't need you on the stream, and I think that you need to reevaluate how you price art and how you think of the value of art. Just point blank. And like, as an artist, I'm not going to say that my art is great. I'm not going to say that it's amazing or that it is like this masterpiece that's worth thousands of dollars or anything like that, but it sure as damn hell is worth the time that it took to make it. And that's the standard that I mean, after interacting with that person and realizing what they thought of this, what they thought of like what art should be priced at, after that interaction, I have realized that that's the standard I'm going to hold myself to no matter what. Even if it means that I lose money. Even if it means that I'm not paid as much as I was before. Like, I would rather keep that standard than I would get a bunch more commissions. Just point blank. Because people who don't pay well for art are not going to give me good commissions anyway, so I don't want them. And people who don't pay well for art are not going to be my friends in this chat either. And that's just a way that I've had to be, and it's sad, but you know, what can you do? But yeah, that was my terrible interaction. I think I've discussed it, maybe not in so much detail, but I've kind of talked about it a little bit in the chat, or not in the chat, but in the in this stream before. But I wanted to kind of go through just more of like the more back alley like details, like the math of it and stuff, to sort of really flesh out, you know, how that all functions, how that all fits together. Kind of really get it to drill into people's head to say like, hey, pay well for art, and if you're not gonna pay that price for the artist, like all you have to do is tell them, hey, that's a little out of my budget, I'm sorry, I can't pay that right now, do you have a payment plan? Because the other thing that's really annoying to me about this is they immediately went to Facebook and made a post about it instead of, hey, do you have a payment plan? Like, you know, you can ask that, right? You can ask artists if they have a payment plan. I do. I always have, because I know art is expensive. I pay for my friends' art. I know it's pricey. I'm not dumb. I have a payment plan. And if this person would have asked, like, hey, do you have a way, an alternate way that I could pay? I don't make a lot of money. I also am minimum wage right now. Like, is there something I could do or whatever? I would be able to do a payment plan for them. It's just that, like, they didn't even ask. They didn't think to ask. They just immediately went from, this is too expensive, you're a fraud. And like, at this point, I don't know how to, like, there's nothing I can do to explain to them how they're wrong. So the only like, again, part of my happy thing in all of this, and part of what I'm thankful for, is like, because I didn't have a way to explain away any of that from them, like, I wasn't gonna react to that post because that would have outed me as the person that they were accusing, and I don't need that drama. I don't want to be outed as the person that they were accusing of that. So, you know, because then it throws, like, and this is another thing that, like, I guess young artists could learn from, when someone says something like that about you, don't interact with it. I, for the longest time, had this mentality that, like, I needed to interact with every time someone said horrible things about my art. I have to say something, I have to defend myself. Don't. You don't need to. Because that person's wrong. They're just flat out incorrect. And let them be incorrect in their own little circle. Who cares if they convince, like, 20 people not to buy art from you? Who cares? Find more people. Find better people. Anyone who would believe that out of that person is not someone that you want to buy your art anyway. Stop caring. Don't interact. Someone says something bad about what you're doing, avoid them. And that's what I did. And I could have gone in there. I could have interacted. I could have been like, I can't believe you would say this. Blah, 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 blah. But either way, that's not going to change what this person thinks of me. So no matter what, there is no point in going on and on in a tangent with this person, trying to get them to view me as someone of value. I don't need that. I don't need their approval. And like having that confidence is probably one of the best things that's ever happened to me as an artist, and I'm glad that I do now. When I was younger, I wouldn't have had that, and it's really great. And I think that's like the best advice that I could give. Like sometimes there's these prompts, right, that are like, if you could tell your younger art self, what would you tell them, or whatever. And my younger art self advice is like, stop caring about, you know, what other people say about your art or what other people think or whatever. Just have that self satisfaction of like, I like making this thing, and go with it. And I still, even to this day, I still struggle with it. Like, I still have moments where I feel like, oh man, I did a bad job, I did a bad draw, I need to like take a break, I need to whatever. But coming back to that like self-confidence stuff always works. It always makes every moment like that feel so much better. So that's always the advice that I would give to like younger me. Just like, be confident. I mean, you lose nothing. Like, some people are gonna think you're an arrogant prick, but so what? I mean, those people are terrible. Why would you want them to be your friends? But yeah, that's the terrible time that I got accused of terrible things by a horrible person. And you know, maybe one day they will be here in the chat. I doubt it, but maybe one day they'll be here and they'll have something fun to say about this. But I like, it's my experience. I'm gonna talk about it until I don't feel like I need to anymore. But yeah, just moral of the story: don't accuse an artist of tracing work if you don't have proof, and even if you do have proof, you may not be the proof that you think it is. And maybe you should sit back and consider what hateful thing in your own heart has made you need to tear down other artists like that. Now, when it comes to someone like Butch Hartman, by all means, go all out, tear down that person, because he's a shitlord anyway. But when it comes to like your own local artists, why do you need to do that? What in your heart is telling you? Someone like me, local artist who like barely makes rent. Why? What are you upset about? Do you think I'm swindling a lot of people? Do you think I'm lying to a lot of people? Me, with my less than 1,000 followers on social media? Me, with my 44 followers on Twitch? How am I a threat? Right? So, it's more of a reflection on the other person. If someone says that about you, don't listen to them. It's more of a reflection on whoever they are and whatever they're insecure about. 100%. But yeah, that's my little art person PSA. Welcome to art school. Anyway, I'm getting relatively close to being done with this. So, or at least being done with the sketch version of this. I'll finish it probably next Monday, if I have time. But I'm gonna finish up some of these smaller bits up here. I put this book here, but I don't really like the idea of a book being here. I had this whole like thought process around this being a cafe, and then like I didn't draw the cafe in the background, and I feel like if I drew it in the background now, it would be a little too complicated. So I think I'm not going to have the cafe in the background, and I'm just going to do sweets in here. So I think I'm going to omit the book and try to think of something else to put in that spot. Maybe like some macarons or something, but I'm just drawing little sweets now. And just trying to finish up this bit here. Coffee cup, boba spoon. I don't remember what I was going to put here. Oh, was it like chocolate bar? I think it was. I think it was supposed to be a chocolate bar. So we're gonna draw a candy bar. to have the torn paper on it. There we go, chocolate bar. Trying to think of what I can replace that in that book area. Also, I'm going to add in some more little bubbles. Kind of like the ones that are at the bottom. Just because they're kind of... Since they're the only ones that are there, I want to focus those up. Make them kind of go. Have some extra little ones in and around areas where they would be. And this is one way to make water make a lot of sense, is to add a bunch of little like bubble details and stuff in places where the anything that's under the water is a little blurred out from those bubble details. It really helps kind of if I delete all of this, it helps have that mentality that this is underwater. See, you have this like bubble that's like rising up from here and stuff. That helps a lot to sort of convey that this here is underwater. It kind of adds to that like shading, kind of adds to the idea that whatever this is in here, like this tail bit, is moving. It's like thrashing around and all that stuff, so that's always really helpful. Also going to add in another sway line because the line that I have right here doesn't have a lot of echoing. And another one over here, just to add in a bunch of line stuff, a bunch of bubbles, a bunch of little elements that make it have a lot more. So I need something to put here, and I'm thinking something that like breaches the water. Ooh, I just had the best idea. Ice cream cone. I drew that little cone shape, and then I was like, ice cream. And the cool thing about ice cream is that it's gonna leach and bubble. It's gonna make, because this is water in here, the ice cream cone is going to make it, it's going to be blending with the water and stuff. Perfect idea. So we've got ice cream cone, cupcake, soda, chocolate bar, tea, boba tea, a spoon, a cake, piece of cake with a fork, and then we've got the strawberries that go here. You know, I think this is going pretty well. Oh, I know, I haven't done... I mean, I kind of want to make it a gradient into this tail. I wonder if I could do that with the strawberries. If I can make them a gradient. I'm going to make a new layer with the strawberries on it, and then I'm going to select around here so that I can erase out where the strawberry shouldn't interact with, or shouldn't interact, but where the strawberry should be, like bits of the tail and stuff like that. I'm just gonna erase. I might not be able to do this just because of how detailed I made the sketch. That's fine. I'll just erase them manually. Oops. Let's go like this. Just anywhere where the strawberries aren't on this new tail that I drew. I made the selection of the strawberries slightly larger than I needed it to be, just because I was worried that when I drew the line art for the tail that it would kind of mess with like the strawberries would be too, like they wouldn't line up with what I wanted, so I'm just mega paranoid like that. Also, I'm going to grab 1 or 2 of these and put them in places where strawberries are a little bit too scarce. There's some bits where like there are no strawberries at all, where there should be. There we go. Just from the way that the warp worked on this. I'm gonna do the same thing with this one. Put him down here, just on the edge. Okay. Alright. Go back to erasing. I think I'm just gonna manually erase ones that are here to fit along the line art that I've just made. And I did this so that I wouldn't have to manually erase, but that's fine. I don't mind it so much if I've got really concise line art that I can follow. It's not so bad. But I want these strawberries on here to be like a focal point, so I'm trying to focus as much as I can on making them fit the whole setup here. I think once I'm done getting this all erased, I'll probably close the stream, because I'm looking at the time here, and I also need to go get dinner, or go make dinner, I guess. So I need to make some dinner, and I need to finish those commissions I was talking about earlier. So as soon as I finish up these little straw babies, getting them all erased out and looking clean and on the art, I will close the stream out and we will say our goodbyes. But yeah, stream's kind of quiet and dull on Wednesdays usually. I know I ranted a lot today. Didn't mean for that to happen, but oh well. But yeah, Wednesday streams are usually kind of quiet, kind of just sitting and chilling, making whatever I want. Sometimes I do more related to like the comic stuff that I'm doing, but that's usually Mondays. But usually on Wednesdays I just kind of do whatever I feel like drawing, and I make a lot of character portraits because I end up like wanting to draw my D&D character a lot on Wednesdays. So if you are ever here in the chat on Wednesdays, this kind of stuff is what you're gonna see. It's just me being lazy as hell, drawing whatever I want to draw while I have time to do it. Alright, there's all of our straw babies on here. They look real cute. And I'm going to duplicate it one more time and add in a couple of strawberries where I think they would be. Also to kind of make the different layers of this tail look correct, because there are parts where this wouldn't have, like, it's intersecting with parts and it wouldn't have as clean of an intersection as what it has here, so I'm just gonna try to make these little guys function for that. Like what I'm talking about here is like there are bits like here and here where the strawberries overlap on that tail bit, and they shouldn't. So I'm just gonna add in some little strawberries to change that interaction slightly, change that that thing up. This one shouldn't have a stem here. This one's stem shouldn't overlap there. There should be no overlapping on that one either. I'm gonna merge these two. Duplicate again. And select. Alright. I think going with that's as clean as that's going to get. I'm also going to move a couple of these little guys lower down. Just because the randomization of some of this is getting a little skewed. Okay, there we go. Now it looks like the strawberry printed dress. That's really cute. So I think next up I'm gonna have to probably paint in all the flats for this. So if you want to see me painting the flats, that's probably gonna be next Monday. Unless I do a stream over the weekend, which I don't know if I will, depending. But yeah, painting the flats is gonna be next. I'm probably gonna flat out the character in the foreground and then do character in the background, or not character but the stuff in the background. I just realized if I'm going to be flatting this, my color palette does not have a peach, so let me add in a nice peachy color for the background of the strawberry dress. Like that. There we go. Background color achieved. So yeah, next up is flatting the background. And adding in flats is one of the most time-consuming bits of doing illustrations like this. So we're gonna have a fun time with it, but I'm gonna flat this background out the next time. If you were here hanging out, if you had a fun time, let me know. Say something on Twitter, hang out with me on all of my other social media. You can find me on Twitter down below. If you can't find me there, feel free to message me or let me know. Most of my social media is going to be easily found by searching Apollo Him or A Him to Humanity on literally any platform. So I'll see you in the next one. I'm going to go make some dinner and pet my dog, who is looking very cute over there. So I hope you all had a wonderful Wednesday night, and I will see you in the next one.